Run, Juanito, run. It is midday and you have important business. A school is a time for refreshments, for jokes and laughter. It is a time for quietness, for pleasant games and gentle amusements. It is a fine day and school is out. It is a day, Juanito, and you have had your lunch. But your father is hungry. It is for this reason you run, leaving behind the games, the amusements. Run now for the food your mother has prepared. For also may eat and rest and refresh himself. This is the story of Juanito and his father Juan Tomas Garcia, and his mother Maria, his sister Petra, his little brother Jesus, and the baby Conchita. This is the story of a part of the United States, the island of Puerto Rico. The story of the people who live on that island. This is a land where many live by farming, where a man's living comes from tobacco or coffee or citrus or sugar. Whatever the crop, the work is hard, the sun is hot. The work is hard, the land is poor. It is difficult for a man to earn a living. This is the story of how people are, how they act with each other, how they are happy and contented or miserable and afraid, the problems they have. Island, the land itself, the poverty on the land, have much to do with the nature of a man, a woman, a child. But the nature of people, the way they are, grows out of other things too. It grows out of the feelings a man has. The way he feels toward the men he works with, toward his wife, his children. This is a story of some of those feelings that men and women have. How those feelings affect the children, how they help to mold the way a child grows, the way he develops into a man, the kind of man he will be. It is also the story of children and how they feel, and what the feelings of a child may do to the man or woman that the child will grow into. A child learns to be a man by playing, by imitating in his play the things men do, the way grown-ups act. They pretend to be men because it makes them feel good inside. It makes them feel more...
Hello. Welcome to the stream. I don't think I've ever said that. I'm Charis Euphranor. I'm the first and last philosopher VTuber, the last librarian of Alexandria. And I am, today, in today's stream, I am Lonely Man number 1. Joined with me are Lonely Man number 2, Axion, and not Lonely, not Man, Tia. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Wow, tough to follow an introduction like that. I don't know if I can top that. But for anyone who has not seen me before, my name is Axion. I'm a philosopher VTuber from Beyond the Stars and Emptiness, and I'm delighted to be here.
Hello everyone. I am Tia Fair, idol philosopher and justice incarnate, and the third member of Vlosophy. You did mention Vlosophy, right, Harris?
Yeah. No, yep, yeah, that's us. That's the three of us. Look at that. That's three colors. Vlosophy, because like it's like VTuber and philosophy. That's us. That's what we're doing today. Is that what we're doing today? We're doing philosophy. We're discussing philosophy today. We are discussing, maybe, not so much philosophy, or maybe very much philosophy. But we're coming at it from the angle of the male loneliness epidemic. Now, uh, would either of you like to maybe just give a brief, maybe not explanation for what it is, because that's gonna be maybe even a bit contentious and part of the subject of discussion. But when we say the male loneliness epidemic, what do you guys think? What do you guys think when we say that?
Can I just say I love this as an opening question. I love how open-ended it is. And I think it reflects your nature very well, Karis, and the nature of this stream too. So I can say a few things to start out.
Yes.
When I think of the male loneliness epidemic, this might go totally against your advice to like not try to give a definition, but something in me is just tempted to like try to give definition, so I'll just maybe start there a
It's
little
good.
bit.
It's good. Yeah.
And well, the first thing that comes to mind, I can put it in those terms, is to say that I think of unprecedentedly large numbers of men suffering from being lonely, not just in a romantic context. I think it also extends to things like friendship, especially close friendship. But I do think that arguably the most significant cases of it are in a romantic context, in the various forms involved of being lonely in a romantic context, such as late virginity and involuntary celibacy, and so on. And I do think that there is pretty strong evidence that there is a male loneliness crisis in this sense, that there are data from, for example, the National Survey of Family Growth, General Social Survey, that indicate a pretty sharp rise in sexlessness among young US men. Not just in the US, but I'm just mostly using US data here. So like some of the stats that I'm looking at or have been looking at recently are that for men aged 22 to 34, 24% report no sexual partners in the past year. This was during 2022 to 2023, which is up from 9% in 2013 to 2015. So that's a pretty sharp increase. In a different survey or different part of that survey, virginity for young males, so not just no sex in the past year, but never having had any sex at all, age 22 to 34, reached 10% in recent data. That's up from 4% a decade ago. And there are various other surveys and data one could get into, but just in the interest of having some data on the table, I do want to say that I think there is evidence that this is a real problem, that it's not just vibes, it's not just a general sense that people have. And so I think that is at least one of the things that I think of when I think of the male loneliness crisis.
Hmm. And you, Tia?
Forgive me for saying this, but I, for one, am actually still shocked that for once, Karis jumped straight into the stream topic instead of yapping about something irrelevant for 40 minutes.
I had all of that out like yesterday. Okay, I had so much irrelevant yapping yesterday, and not because that was the stream about women. Okay, it just happened to come out yesterday. That's all. So, what do we think of
Um,
what do we think of the male
wait,
loneliness epidemic?
yeah, I was getting to that.
Yep.
I think I align at least somewhat with Axe just said. It's kind of, I think it's mostly good that he went first, which makes me feel like I don't need to say as much. But I think I think I find myself diverging on the part about it being um, mainly about romantic relationships. I think it's just about men's relationships with other men and their relationships with themselves. But I do agree that, broadly speaking, the focus is not exclusively on romantic relationships, and I think that's a common misconception that people have about the male loneliness epidemic, and I think that's something we'll talk about in further detail later on.
Mm-mm. I forgive me for always doing this whenever I like but not, and I'm not just doing this for contrast's sake. When I think of the male loneliness epidemic, I think back to uh a moment in time. This was many years ago when I was a lot younger, for I am 60 years old. When I was at a bar
Cap.
with I was at a bar with two friends. We were in our like we were in our 20s. Um, one of the one of these people was a man and one of these people was a woman, and we were having a chat about not male loneliness, but we were having a chat about dating. Now, at this point, the three of us, uh, among the three of us, there was only one person who had a partner at the time, and it was the other man. He had a girlfriend, right? Um, me and this other girl, we were both single. Now, as we were having this, you know, discussion, this banter over drinks, because we were in a bar, the girl start she brought her phone out and started scrolling through a dating app. I don't remember what it was. It was Tinder. And believe me, and forgive me for using the words girl and woman interchangeably, because I'm thinking right now I'm in like a sort of almost dating mode context of my thoughts. But she was scrolling through her phone and rapidly rejecting swiping, was it left or right? I don't really use the apps. Is it left? It's left to reject, right? She was just swiping left on like over and over and over again, like she was playing a video game. Like, and this was in
Yeah.
the middle of conversation. She was a little bored. She brought her phone out. She just started mass swiping left on dudes in a dating app. And then me and the other guy, we were so shocked. We just stopped the conversation. We just couldn't say anything. We stared in disbelief, you know, jaws to the floor,
Mhm.
just watching our friends swiping left. And we're like, what are you doing? What we were like, first of all, we were in the middle of a conversation. So that was a little weird. And second of all, is that a dating app? Are you rejecting like men as you're complaining about how no men there are like no men to date? Like what are you doing? And
What did she say? So you guys confronted her,
just
or
well
what did
she
she say?
said like I don't know. She just went, I'm not sure. I'm just like, and she was like, no, but I like that's different. And then she like immediately understood why we were so shocked that she could say one thing and do another. And so she was like, no. Oh, you mean this? And she points to her dating app. It's like, no, these are not like, this doesn't count. This isn't the same thing. So we're like, this doesn't count. What do you mean this doesn't count? She stares at us again, us two guys. And bear in mind, like my other guy friend, he had a girlfriend. He was dating his girlfriend at the time. We were both in shock. We were both like, no, this doesn't happen. We go into a dating app and we don't have like 100 other people queued up waiting for our approval or rejection. This doesn't happen. What are you talking about? And then, we descended further into conversation. But whenever I think of male loneliness, I think of that moment in my life.
All right, I feel like we're already diving deep here. So wait. Before we proceed, I actually have a question. So,
Yes.
did you ever get to like fully probe your female friend's mind and find out exactly why she was doing that? Like, what was the precise psychology behind that strange behavior?
I did, and we we're all three of us are still very much friends to this day. We speak frequently with each other, on mainly online, occasionally in person. I'm gonna hold on. What do I say? I want to just add that like very quickly that about maybe I want to say 30 minutes ago, um she sent me a reel on Instagram, and then like I just saw the preview. I haven't clicked into it. It was a reel that she sent, and then she said the message, "This reel made me so mad. I hate men." So that's what happened
She
like
knew you were.
30 minutes
She,
ago.
she knew you were doing the stream, and she wanted to give you inspiration.
So yeah, so back to your question, right? No, I did get the opportunity, obviously, to probe on like, what do you mean? What do you think this? And I don't want to preview too much of what we're about to talk about, but essentially, the point she was trying to make was, oh no, I'm still lonely because yes, there are these men who want to date me. Like in the app, so many. But this isn't the attention she wanted. She wants a specific attention from a certain shall we use her words, standard of men. And the men that were in her DMs and in her dating app were not those men. And I found it really interesting, and there's more to it. There's obviously more to dig into, but that's, I guess, in summation, her response to that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's more to it, and then I'm just wondering, like, in that case, why are you still on the app? That doesn't make sense.
Right? That's the, and you know what? That's one of the things I want to, like, dive into today. You know what? Should we maybe we can just start here. Why is it that she's still on the apps, rejecting and swiping left over and over again, almost for sport, all of these men, while me and my other friend are staring in awe because we know that this would never happen to us because we're men. And like, I don't want to believe that this will happen to me because I'm a man. But I've never used it, and I've never used the dating app. But I imagine if I did, it wouldn't, I wouldn't be very popular on it. At least I wouldn't have, lines and lines of women just waiting for me to swipe left on them all. I don't know. Like, there's a hunch there that it's not just something to do with how attractive I am as a person, how I present myself, etc., etc. It feels like there's just something about it that's just because I'm a guy. And I guess that's, maybe the backbone of the premise of today's discussion.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, there are a few things I could say on that, but did you want to respond to you?
I have a few things I could say as well, and I don't think any one of them would entirely explain why this phenomenon happens, but yeah, I think this stream was supposed to have some kind of organized structure that we agreed on a few days
Oops.
ago. That wasn't just Charis framing it via his personal anecdote. I think we were supposed to start off with the question of what is the male loneliness epidemic, and then proceed into why is it there? What are the causes of it?
We can do that
And I
now.
suppose that's where we are now.
So what is it? What's going on?
Well,
What do you think, Axe?
I can. mm, It's tough because there's so much that we could go into from here. I was actually going to just propose very briefly an answer to your earlier question of why, or the question that I think we all wondered of, like, yeah, why would one be on the app in that case as a woman if one's just going to reject everyone?
Mm.
And yeah, of course, I can't say for sure. I can't peer into another person's psychology, but I do imagine it must be quite an ego boost in a sense. Like, I imagine if I were to go on a dating app and there were just leagues of women that I was just swiping left on, just saying like, nope, 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 nope. Like, and all of them, like, seemed interested in me. Like, they had swiped right at me, but I was swiping left on all of them. I imagine it would be kind of like, hey, like, I'm well liked. People are interested in me, So I can't say for sure, but that is just at least something that I imagine as far as I can to try to empathize there. But I do think this is a very important type of
Can I
experience.
interject here
Oh,
quickly?
yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that, and state for the record that as Justice Incarnate, I do not endorse this behavior. We're gonna have a lot to unpack later. Anyway,
enough.
as you were saying, Axe?
I see. But yeah, I think this experience is that you've shared, Karis, is one that many men have had, and just people in general of, but I guess here we're focusing on men, of, being in a friend group and then getting a glimpse of how, hey, the women that I'm around seem to attract interest more easily than I do, or more easily than I would, if I were to, especially with dating apps. I think dating apps are probably the starkest illustration of that. And so I do think that's absolutely a fair thing to be thinking about for the male loneliness crisis. And this also goes back to something you were saying earlier, Tia, about, on your view, if I understood you correctly, it sounded like you were saying that you view the male loneliness crisis primarily in terms of friendship rather than romantic relationships. And my
Um,
view on that is, oh, sorry, go ahead. I don't want to
oh,
misinterpret you, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong.
I wouldn't use the word primarily. I just think it's about all of those. It's not about just one over the other, you know?
I
These
see.
problems, they intersect, you say. Interesting.
Mm-mm. I see. Well, I suppose my view is that I do absolutely think that both are important. If I had to pick one though as primary, I would say to me it seems like romantic relationships. I mean, at least among men that I've known and corresponded with, the absence of a romantic relationship, I think generally hits harder to them than the absence of close male friendships. And there are some aspects of that experience that I can describe from people I've corresponded with, things that I can go into. But before I do that, though, let's see, there was one other thing I wanted to say about. Oh, yeah, another thing that I do sometimes think about when it comes to just male loneliness in general is the experiences reported by trans men who, after transitioning, report that they are sort of shocked at the level of isolation that comes from living as a man. And this, there have been various, reports, accounts of this, on social media and elsewhere, of trans men who, before transitioning, had thought like, hey, like this will be, pretty smooth sailing, male privilege and so on. And perhaps they do experience that to an extent, but in this area of having, close relationships, in relationships where one can really be emotionally open and really connect with someone, they report, much more difficulty in that area. And so that to me also seems like one further indication of the male loneliness crisis. Again, there's a little more I could say about the experience or the kinds of experiences reported by people who have a lot of trouble finding romantic relationships in particular. But just so I don't talk for too long, I'll pause there in case anyone wants to follow up on any of that.
I think that sets the stage pretty well. I like where it was going. It felt like, sorry, before I let Tia comment as well. I just, it sounded to me like we were like just on the cusp of something, but I'm not sure what it was. What do you think, Tia?
Um, there's something that I could say here. Um, I I guess the main thing to start with is um X, when you say that, you know, the men that you've spoken to report, the absence of romantic relationships hitting harder than the absence of male friendships. Do you think that you or they have ever stopped to wonder and explore why that is?
I think in many cases, yes. And also, I probably could have put it a little bit clearly. I think for a lot of them, it's not so much that they have no male friends and no romantic partner, and they just experience the lack of a romantic partner as sort of causing more suffering for them. It's more of like they might have some male friends, like they're able to have at least some male friendship, but there's a complete absence of a romantic partner, and that's maybe where the hard hitting nature of it comes from.
Okay. Um, I think one thing that we have to do here is that um, really just establish that this issue, I mean, it is called an epidemic after all, but it's so um, wide spanning that I think it's going to be difficult to work with generalizations here, even when we try to speak of men. That's such a broad demographic of different people with different experiences that we can both think we're talking about the same thing, but we're actually talking about different people with different experiences. I think that's something we should keep in mind going forward.
Oh, absolutely. I think that men experience certain things, women experience certain things, but not all men experience the man things. I certainly did not have my share of certain male things that have happened, and I'm sure likewise to you both. Like, we might perhaps be categorized into a group, or be generalized in some sense, but are ourselves unique individuals, right? We have our own experiences, we have our own plights, our own troubles, or also our own, but also our own uh, opportunities and celebrations and triumphs. So, of course, when we deal in these broader, sweeping claims, or at least I hope we try not to make them too broad and sweeping, I also do agree that we should, as much as we can, as long as it is helpful and pragmatic, focus in ultimately on not men in general or women in general, but perhaps maybe people we know or ourselves.
Mm. I could continue here if that's all right.
Absolutely.
If I may, I think I would like to steer this discussion down the direction that I think it should go. This being toward a certain elephant in the room that I would like to address, and that is when it comes to the question of you know why what causes the male loneliness epidemic, why is this taking place. Let's take a quick moment to address what is I find very unfortunately a very prevalent answer to this question, which I find to be a misconception, which is how a lot of women will say that there's like no like there's either like no real male loneliness epidemic, or like there is but it's not a serious problem because it's just like guys complaining about not being able to like get laid, but they have so many other privileges, so like what's the big deal. I think this is something that all three of us have observed and can agree with. Is that right?
Yes, I think, yeah, people do often say that. Mm.
Mm-hmm. And I could continue speaking if that's all right. I think a further thing. Oh, did you want to add something, Karis?
No, I just wanted to say go for it.
Oh, okay. um, yeah, a further thing that I've seen women say is when you bring up the point that, because here's like I think one thing that is important to note. One difference between men and women is that I think that, generally speaking, women have an easier time making friends with and bonding with other women than men do with other men. And I think a lot of the time when you point this out, it's not something that gets really a lot of sympathy and understanding from women. They might say things like I don't like. Well, why don't men? If their men are lonely and can't get girlfriends, like why don't they just just invest in their friendships instead, like women do? Because like for a lot of women, there are there are a lot of like single women today as well. It's just that the difference is that women are generally a lot less dissatisfied in their singlehood, and we can talk about the reasons why this is. But what I want to say right now is, I think that if you're a woman, just kind of just like standing there like when like just kind of like being baffled at why don't just like men do what women do, I would say that that's a sign that you're kind of like out of touch and that you lack insight into what the lives of a lot of men are like. um what I have to say about this is, the reason that men don't do that is not because they are too lazy to, or they are, malicious, or or anything like that. It's mainly because a lot of men can't, as in they don't know how, and they don't know how to make friendships with they don't really know how to make friends and have bonds with other men because of the way that gender norms influence the way that um, girls and boys are socialized growing up. And one of the main arguments I want to make today is that the normal way in which boys are raised in our society actually meets the bar for child neglect. A lot of you here may know that I myself am actually a survivor of child abuse and child neglect, and my view on this issue is very much informed by my personal experience and observations. Over the years, I've done things like look into incel communities and see that a lot of the struggles and challenges that incels or that lonely men talk about facing actually closely mirror my own to a very eerie extent. That is my own experiences of growing up literally not knowing how to make friends or talk to people because I wasn't afforded the opportunity to pick up those emotional skills. Even though they are men and I'm a woman, we seem to have that in common. And we can see evidence of this being actually a societal standard or belief in things like the adage that like oh boys are easier to raise. Like a lot of people talk about like being pregnant and then if if like and then someone asks like oh is it a boy or a girl, and if they say like oh it's like oh, and if they say it's a girl, then the other person's like oh then you feel like your work cut out for you. And then like if it's if it's a boy, they're like oh well then like that's good, like boys are easier to raise. But it's not that boys are easier to raise, it's that boys and girls need the same like kind of guidance to become like fully fledged people. It's just that we do not invest in boys emotionally, and there's a double standard here. And yeah, there's more I could say, maybe later on, but I'll stop there for now.
I think we all
Well, thank you,
share
Tia.
the.
Oh,
Yeah,
go right
sorry.
ahead, Garrett.
Okay, I just want to say quickly. I think we all share the sympathies for lonely men and lonely people, and that's why we're doing this stream. Right? We're doing this stream because we all have kind of collectively come together and gone like, yeah, this is an issue, this is a problem, but what is the nature of it, and how do we tackle it? I think you started from a really interesting angle, Tia, from like thinking of it as a sort of improper or maybe a lack of socialization in the raising of boys and of men that might have caused emotional neglect, or at least might have in instilled certain misconceptions on how relationships should be or how we should talk to each other, that is prevalent maybe among certain boys, not all boys, that might be one of the causes for this loneliness epidemic. Now, although I think we are generally in agreement, what I do want to say, or maybe what I do want to ask is how do you think that explains the recency of the male loneliness epidemic? Because we've been raising men for a long time, probably for forever, since we started existing as human beings. We've been raising little boys and little girls for all those years. Why is it that now there seems to be a maybe not now there's maybe it's not because that now there is an issue, but now the issue is so much more pronounced. Why do you think that is? And I'm sorry that I like directed the question back at you instead of letting Axe speak, but you know.
All right. Yeah, I can answer that. I mean, I don't mean to claim that child neglect is the only cause behind the male loneliness epidemic. The reason I'm putting an emphasis on it is because I think it is an important yet under-recognized element of this issue that I think is really important to put forth and highlight. I think the reason things are getting worse is because the whole thing about child neglect is it is intersecting with how it's intersecting with all the other causes of the epidemic, such as the economy and income inequality, and as well as the social political climate. For instance, I think that I've heard about child neglect becoming worse in recent years, just kind of across the board, because a lot of parents can't afford to spend quality time with their children anymore. Like both parents are working multiple jobs and they're never home. But I think that that's something that actually disproportionately affects boys, because at least girls will still be sort of like encouraged by society to like be emotional, and like they just have, I think, more of like a blueprint when it comes to like how to like form those human relationships, whereas boys are left in the lurch by comparison.
Hmm. Hmm. What do you think, Axe?
Well, I do have thoughts on that question that I would be happy to share, but if it's all right, there was something about an earlier point that I wanted to kind of go into. And
Yes, please.
this is very much agreeing with what you were saying earlier, Tia, and also you, Charis. I think both of you put it very nicely when, well, Tia, you brought up the fact that lots of women, when sort of confronted with discourse about the male loneliness epidemic, will either deny that it exists or at the very least deny its seriousness. And you brought up that your view seems to be different, and that on your view we should be compassionate and try to have understanding and so on. And I agree with all that 100%. I absolutely think that that is the right call. And I can say a little more on this because even though all of us three here agree on it, I think it's quite possible that some people in chat, maybe even if not right now, but like people who watch the VOD in the future, might be a little more skeptical on whether there is a male loneliness epidemic or how serious it is if it exists. I think lots of people do have this perception of, oh, like boohoo, like some guys can't get laid. What's the big deal? So in light of that, I did want to just say a little bit more about the experience of the people who I view as the most significant representative of the male loneliness epidemic, namely incels. And by incel here, I don't mean someone who hates women. I just mean someone who is celibate and not by their own choice.
Yeah.
So in this sense, being
Like when
sorry, go ahead.
I just want to add something real quick. When I used the word incel earlier, because I know I used the word incel, I was using it in the same way. That just someone who is like involuntarily celibate does not necessarily hate women, and probably doesn't, at least in my examples. So
But
please continue.
why do we
Huh?
associate the word incel with people who are angry and, frankly, probably a bit cowardly and unsavory, who spend their time online hating women? Why?
I
Well,
kind
I
of feel
think
like we
that
can.
itself is part of the issue in the male loneliness crisis, that
Mm.
people conflate these so often. And I know you weren't, Tia, so I'm sorry if I made it sound like you were. I didn't mean to implicate you in that. That was just a clarification meant for general purposes. But yeah, I do think the extreme stigma associated with the term is itself a part of what's going on and why the male loneliness crisis is maybe more difficult to respond to than it would otherwise be. And
Mhm.
so I can share a few details here that I think might be useful for people who maybe don't have a very, I guess, detailed or developed knowledge, who haven't spent a lot of time, researching the male loneliness crisis, particularly when it comes to incels, because I can say that from my experiences, just of corresponding with certain people and learning about incels' experiences from reading their accounts, from reading incel forums. This is a community that I've always been fascinated by and an issue that I've always found fascinating. And I think there are some aspects of the experience that a lot of people just don't realize or don't really think about or appreciate the seriousness of. And probably the best way that I can begin to sort of indicate the seriousness of the condition for people who haven't gone through it is just to note that for many or most people, romantic relationships are the most important, or at the very least among the most important relationships in their entire lives. And consider that incels completely miss out on this, missing out on such a fundamental human experience. Human experiences like sex and love, that there's a strong drive for, and having that drive be constantly frustrated, constantly unfulfilled, not just in the sense of never, for example, having had sex, but just imagine never having even been in a situation where sexual behavior would have been appropriate or where it would have been interpreted as anything other than harassment. This is the kind of thing that incels report as making them go through life feeling like an unlovable freak. And again, not just about the sex, but about the absence of love, of emotional intimacy, romantic companionship from one's life. Incels everywhere report that that's what really the most hurtful thing is, having to go through life without that. Even though it's often stereotyped as just focused on sex, really it's more about the absence of romantic love. And even just beyond the circumstances of one's own life as an incel, there's the element of being alienated from the broader culture, receiving constant messages about hookup culture and how it's so prevalent, when for you, hookup culture is nowhere close to being on your radar. Constantly seeing couples everywhere you go, seeing other people succeed in this area where you haven't, being told that sex and romance are things that just happen, when for you it doesn't happen. It doesn't ever happen. And even worse than that is the fact that there's the element of being shamed for it, or attacked for it, or bullied for it. I think this gets back to the point about how incel is used as a catch-all term for any man that a person wants to insult. I think we instinctively use the term this way because we recognize that attacks that target a man's perceived sexual failure are especially potent, are especially hurtful. It's what gives the word such weight. And people assume, part of that weight that the word has, I think, is from the fact that people assume that the dating market must be fair, such that if you can't find a partner, it must mean that you are a horrible person, which is a whole source of personal attacks in its own right. The gaslighting that incels often receive is, oh, you're getting rejected because you're so frustrated and so resentful, when in reality, for almost all of them, it's the reverse. The frustration and resentment were not what came first. It was the years of rejection that led to the frustration and resentment. And no one, apart from other incels for the most part, understands what it's like. That's the report that they give, is that only the community seems to understand. The mainstream media portrayals, just imagine if the mainstream media portrayals of you and of people like you painted you as weirdos or as neckbeards or as creeps or as future school shooters. And then seeing other forms of inequality all the while, such as, financial inequality, racial inequality, gender inequality, just seeing these get endless sympathetic attention and concern in mainstream media, in academia, in culture, whereas the form of inequality that you notice most prevalently in your life, what we might call sexual or romantic inequality, gets practically none by comparison. Just think about how seriously we take, for example, accusations of racism or homophobia or transphobia. But meanwhile, if somebody accused someone of incelphobia, they would get laughed out of the room. It would not be taken seriously at all. I think that the problem is especially significant when we think about how it compounds. The fact that someone who has faced chronic rejection, that itself is taken as a red flag and makes one more likely to be stigmatized for it, less likely to be chosen as a romantic partner in the future. Because as low status as it is to be chronically rejected in romance, possibly the only thing that is even lower status than that is to complain about it. And so this puts incels in a double bind where they can't openly complain about the issue for the most part, not under their own names at least, on pain of pushing themselves even deeper into low status territory and making it even more difficult to escape from. I think that given the extreme difficulty of just even finding someone who will give you a chance, if that's been your life experience so far, it makes the stakes much higher whenever you do. There's this sense of, oh, like if I say one awkward thing, then suddenly the other person might lose interest in me. It's like a constant tightrope. And even if you do find someone, eventually, maybe after decades of searching, perhaps you're in your 30s or 40s or older, there's the sense or the worry or the difficulty of not having to of wonder, the difficulty of asking yourself, like, am I just being settled for? Like, does this person actually desire me? Like, would they have chosen me when we were both younger? Or is it just now that they're settling me for me now that, now that we're both are older? And even if you do eventually find someone who's not settling for you, the many years that you missed out on, like, you'll never get those years back. And so I think it's no surprise when we think about all of these facets of the experience that being incel is an experience that often leads to being suicidal. The mental health of incels, understandably, is just extremely low. And so absolutely, I think that our response should be one of empathy and compassion and, not hostility and ridicule. And so I want to say, I do think it was very well said, what you both said, Charis and Tia, about having that response of empathy and compassion.
Um,
So I know that was a lot.
Axion, may I respond here?
Yeah, sure.
Um, First of all, I can't help but think that, I think that was something that maybe belonged closer to the start of the stream, and I kind of wish we had heard it then. I think I want to thank you for sharing all of that. It's very clear to me. I can see it in your eyes that this is an issue that you're really passionate about, and that means a lot to you. And I don't, I know it's not necessarily easy to speak about. So thank you, really, for sharing all of that. I think after hearing all of that, I think any fair-minded person would have to admit that there must be something more to this issue than just hateful, entitled dudes with privilege, like complaining out of turn. That's what I would say, at least. And I want to say that not to distract from the main issue too much, but I would note that I really want to make was that when you mentioned the idea of a double bind, and the way that people assume that if you aren't, like, in a if you aren't in a relationship, or if you aren't popular, that somehow this is a reflection of you and your character. I just want to add that in based on my experience as a trauma survivor, I've experienced, like, I've been like a victim of the same phenomenon. Like, I can tell you straight up that friendship and relationships are, like, not a meritocracy, like, not in the way you think it is. There are a lot of, like, perfectly good, innocent people out there who are suffering, and not because they have, like, ill intent for the people around them. It could be because of like autism, or mental illness, or something else. But I just not to make this about myself. Like, I'm not saying, like, oh, like, like, I'm not trying to play like I don't know, like, problem Olympics or anything like that. I just think that the fact that there's a connection here, I think, is interesting.
I really like the
Very much so. Thank you, too.
yeah, I really like the use of or maybe the rejection of the idea that well, I think you were referring to the dating market when you said that it's not quite a meritocracy. Is that correct?
You cut out there, I think.
Hello,
What did you
sorry.
say?
So, I really liked when
Dating.
you.
Yeah, it cut out after
Yeah.
dating market. What did you say after that?
Okay, sorry. Did you did you referred to the dating market as not a meritocracy, right? Like that is what you said, right?
Not just dating market, just friendships too, just all kinds of
Right.
relationships.
Like the sort of the capacity, maybe not. Yeah, the capacity to be loved as a man, right? I really like that. I just thought that was I thought that was very poignant, very salient, because a
you.
lot of men, in my experience and as I understand, feel for some reason, and perhaps the reason something is something we'll explore later, feel the need that to earn love, right? That you need to be of a certain like value or a certain disposition to receive that love. You have to earn, you have to work really hard for it, or you have to, make a lot of money, or you have to have a good career in order to get love. And perhaps then this boxes one into the conclusion that if I don't have love, if I am not loved, then that means I need to work harder, or I need to be like more valuable. I need to be a high value man, is the notion of it. And this ties very much into the whole the conceptualization of dating as a market, and but also just human relationships as something that is very much like something to be bought and sold, or at least to be exchanged. I really also want to reiterate, maybe not reiterate, but like also just repeat in caps, in all caps, that misandry is real. It is the hatred of men. Misandry is real, just as much as misogyny is, and a lot of people don't. It's strange because you will have people who disagree that misandry is real, even though misogyny is real. One will. I have met and I know people, and one of them was the woman in the story that I told earlier, who believe that misogyny exists, but that misandry somehow does not. Misandry does exist. Some people hate men, and
Yeah.
rarely, but occasionally, those people are themselves men too. But like it exists, and we feel for men and we sympathize with men. This is the sort of what unites the three of us, at least, and hopefully you in the audience. When we think about the male loneliness epidemic, it's ultimately, as both of you have said, of course, coming from a place of sympathy, right? We understand and we feel that, and we share that pain, and we want to understand it so we can move forward from
Yes, well said.
it.
With that in mind, and if anyone wants to add to that, feel free, of course. But should we perhaps talk about, or maybe I know we've briefly touched on this a few times, but maybe go into more detail on our views on the causes of the male loneliness crisis?
Yeah, I mean, for my part, I already mentioned child neglect as one, and or an alternate way of framing it is the fact that boys and girls are socialized differently in ways that are sometimes disadvantageous to women, but also disadvantageous to men.
Hmm. And what say you,
Um,
Charis? Oh.
I I'm in agreement. I want to. I'm so sorry. I want to hang on to like the because as I think sorry to come back to a point we made previously, but I saw a comment in chat that said that compared misandry and misogyny, and said and claimed
I'm
that
seeing it too.
yes, I claim that misogyny is has been used as a tool to control women's autonomy. Misandry at worst makes men uncomfortable. Now I want to voice disagreement very quickly. I understand why one would think that,
Sorry,
but
sorry. It's just because I feel strongly, but I want to say that I can let you finish first, but that I disagree too. I could say things of my own.
you can go for it.
What, really? Yay! um, I I don't know. First of all, I don't know that it's useful to play problem Olympics and be like, okay, yeah, no, but like this problem is like worse and that other problem is like kind of like less legitimate or something. Like, what is the purpose of doing that? Do we not care for the suffering of all those who are suffering? Like, um, do they not all deserve our, our attention and our efforts? Like, do we not have the capacity to tend to everyone at once? Because I think we do. And another thing is, I think that
Can I add to
I
this,
want to say
Shari,
that
before you continue?
there are ways in which misandry does cause institutional harm, and I could start listing some of what some of those ways are, or I could save it for later. But yes, suffice to say, like, I don't think playing Problem Olympics is the play here. What say you, Charis?
Concurred. Because I think like ultimately, as you said, right, comparing and trying to say which one's worse doesn't really do the job or perhaps improve anything in any way. I also think that it's implicit within any comparison between men suffering and then someone inevitably in a knee-jerk reaction going, okay, but what about women? And it's like, yes, that's true. Women also suffer. Men suffer too. And to think, and to compare and to say which one is more, which one is less, to me seems maybe not a pointless exercise, but one that falls may position oneself to potentially fall into the trap that is playing the gender wars game. There's a lot of money in outrage media, in being engaged with rage bait content online. There's a lot of money in it. There's a lot of attention in it because everyone's had a gendered experience, so everyone's got something to say, or at least they think they have something to say about who have it worse, men or women. I want to caution against this this impulse to compare to compare and say which is worse, or which is not as bad, because ultimately I think the solution, or at least the way we tackle men's issues and women's issues, should be through the same effort. It should be through the same effort of recognizing these different some things gendered necessarily and some things gendered unnecessarily issues between men and women, and also for men and women, not just between them, right? That enables all of us to grow, to be able to overcome a lot of the difficulties that we face. And to imply that no, we can't work on both things, it's one or the other, and we must now choose, and we must therefore fall into the arguments of like, okay, but which one is worse, which one is better, which one should we prioritize, I think is mistaken.
Right, because that's kind of a huge waste of breath, and it's not really necessary to kind of compare and just do one over the other. And I think later on, when we get to talking about solutions, I think we can further explore why that is. But for now, I think there's something further I could say about causes. But Axe, you haven't spoken in a while. Is there anything you'd like to say at the moment?
Well, just that I'm broadly in agreement with the thoughts that both of you have just expressed. I do feel like earlier there was something else you wanted to say, right, Charis?
No.
Oh. Okay, I thought there might have been before we started responding to chat, but I guess I was wrong. But anyway, yeah. So in that light, then perhaps we could, Tia, we could hear what you have to say about causes, and then maybe move the discussion in that direction.
Yeah. So, this is another. I don't know. I kind of feel like it's another elephant in the room, relating to what women think. A lot of women think about the male loneliness epidemic, and which I think is not entirely true. Um, so when it comes to, so before we were talking about how, like, a lot of people think, oh, it's just, like, like really like, I don't know, like unappealing dudes, like, complaining about like not being able to get laid, and like, what's the big deal with that? And there's another part of the misconception here, which is that the reason those dudes are single is, I think like Axe already kind of like touched on like part of this, which is the reason is that it is because they are misogynistic and resentful that they can't get laid, and then like B comes from A. And what am I trying to say here? I think what I'm trying to say is that when it comes to the male loneliness epidemic, a lot of the times, even when we try to bring attention to it, there's really a lack of empathy and compassion from I guess you could say non men or non incels, and I think a lot of that comes from um, a resentment that is somewhat like that is like understandable, but perhaps a little misplaced. And that resentment is I think like often directed towards, or inspired by the notion that there's this I think we can't like avoid talking about it today, right? It's like the manosphere. There's this like rise of like hateful young men who are like incredibly dangerous for women, and um and this makes a lot of women I think to an extent like rightfully fearful, and and then that's what leads to the lack of empathy. It's like, well, these men are doing it to themselves by like joining these movements because they hate women so much, and all that. And I want to push back on that narrative a bit by saying that and this is continuing on to from my whole framing of this as abuse and neglect earlier. So when people, I mean, like not just men, but when people, when young people are grow up being emotionally neglected, um, it causes them to skip out on the acquisition of vital emotional skills, and really it not only inhibits their capacity to form romantic relationships, but all kinds of relationships, including just friendships, and you could even say their relationships with their very selves, like their sort of like inner peace or inner strength, their sort of like identity, their self-image, and um, that is something that has just devastating consequences for one's person in one's future. Speaking as someone who is not a man, but who has essentially been there, um, it is an existential hell that will make someone who is, I guess, going through that ripe for radicalization by bad actors. And this is where the manosphere comes in. I've heard this sort of like analogy or the simile that the manosphere is just kind of like the modern day church for like misguided, frustrated young men, in that they will exploit these men's need for belonging, and then just end up like indoctrinating them to like a bunch of shit that they wouldn't necessarily otherwise believe it if it wasn't for that desperation for belonging in the first place. And I think that's what a lot of people get wrong about this issue, and that they think, oh, these men are inherently misogynistic and hateful. They were always going to turn out, this way. Men are like this. They're the evil, and so why should we help them if you're like they're the enemy, right? And I really don't think that's true. Um, I think that this issue would be better framed as really like kind of like a cult or like mass abuse. I think that's what it is when you know powerful figures sort of like induct men into their spaces and find ways to fleece them of their money and make them emotionally dependent on them and sort of foment their hatred and their anger. All of that is abuse. It is not teaching these men to be emotionally independent and happy and healthy. It is making them emotionally and financially dependent, and that meets the definition for abuse. But a lot of people have not come to see it that way because I think of resentment and of misconceptions. But as someone who has kind of been there, as a trauma survivor, I can tell you like a bit about the psychology behind why that happens, behind why people fall into cults and like the manosphere and things like that, which may not be readily understandable if you don't really have any personal experience in this area. I think like the basic from what I know and understand, like the basic science behind it is that different emotions have, I guess, different they feel different ways in our body and have different effects on our well-being. So with love and compassion being some of the most pleasant to experience emotions, but a lot of men, due to the way that they were raised and the things they've experienced, their capacity to love and to feel compassion is inhibited, and rather, in the face of neglect and a lack of guidance and hope in their lives, and these messages from society that maybe they're like not worth a lot as a person, or maybe even there's the gender war and like certain things being unfair. It's going to like leave them, I think, feeling with a lot of despair and guilt. When people tell them, oh, it's your fault that you're lonely because you're like this and that and you're not good enough, it's gonna make them feel guilty. And the problem with that is that despair and guilt are two of the hardest emotions to feel. They're the two of the most dangerous emotions to feel. They can actually kill people long term, and to the point that human beings will be like psychologically motivated to find coping mechanisms so that they can avoid feeling despair and guilt at any cost if they can. And one of the ways that they do that is developing addictions, including hate addiction, because while emotions like hate and anger are still negative emotions, they are more bearable than despair and guilt. And that's why a lot of like shame and like judgment based tactics of like confronting the whole manosphere phenomenon fail, because you're basically asking you're basically asking like men, vulnerable men, to give up their hate and anger and go back to despair and guilt without offering them love and compassion, and they're not going to do that. It's just basic psychology. I know I've said a lot there, so yeah. Someone else
Tia,
can go.
the really
Go ahead.
manly guy with, I was gonna say full head of hair. No, they usually have like no head, with no head of hair and like a big beard, and like he's super ripped and he's got like muscle cars. He's got like a lot of models around him. He told me that if I'm angry enough and I'm enough of a man, I would become more of a man and I'll be just like him. And in order to, speed that up, I need to pay him like $20 a month. It's like isn't it like more than that? It's like $50 a month to be in his exclusive Discord where he gives me tips on how to be manlier, and then maybe one day I'll attain financial freedom. You're saying all of that's not true?
Actually, there's actually a story. I don't know exactly where you want to go with this, but I think there's like a relevant story I could tell that I think will be like really funny.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to say for the record, I don't know how deeply we can go into this, but I do think that the standards for men in society are kind of like fucked up, right? And they're like fucked up for women too. I'm not saying it's just for men, but I think it's kind of sad that a lot of young men, seemingly grew up believing like believing like wholeheartedly in these unfair standards, like I need to be like this tall and my face needs to be a certain shape and I need to be like this amount of money and like to like deserve love and to earn love or whatever. And I mean, I guess I could say like I think if I genuinely believe that, might like feel like tempted to enter the manosphere as well. But in reality, like I don't think that's true. I'm not saying there's no like absolutely no standards exist. I just think that they're like far blown out of proportion. Like in as an example, I don't like have a link in front of me or anything, but I know that like a few years ago on like Twitter, there was this like poll that blew up, and it was a poll like surveying like what kind of like male like I guess like body types like they prefer, and like it turned out that like women like actually don't like like the results of the poll showed that like actually women don't like super muscular men as much
Yes.
as
Sorry.
as much as like a lot of men believe. And the reaction from like the chuds like in the comment section were like of like just incredulity. They were like, no shot. Like I don't believe this. This goes like they must be lying. This goes against everything I've ever been told, and they just absolutely resisted this like new evidence that was in front of them. But I can't guarantee I'll change anyone's minds today. I can just say for my part, like that's I think that holds a lot of truth, and it certainly reflects my own taste in men. I actually like there was something that happened a few months ago. I think like I was at like the grocery store, and you know how like like how like at the grocery store they'll have these like magazine stands like close to like the checkout, and like you'll like often like be like glancing over them like when like as you're checking out. I was like looking. I saw this one that was like I can't remember the name of the magazine, but it was probably some like I don't know, women's magazine maybe. It was like and it had on the front like it said like world's like I don't know, sexiest man alive or whatever. And he was like muscular and smiling. It's like but he was like kind of like his like body was like glistening, and he was like holding like I think like a dog. I can't remember what kind of dog. It was like a small dog. He was like holding it with one arm. And I like kind of like looked at it like disdainfully, and I squinted. And this happened like I don't know like in December, right? I squinted and I was like, "You're not as cool as Axiom."
Of course, as expected. As expected.
That means a lot because he was carrying a dog, and as far as I can tell, that is an unfair advantage when it comes to being judged as sexy.
There's like you reminded me of this post I saw a while ago. I'm gonna try to see if I can put this put these two images on stream. I'm gonna see if I can get it on. But these two images are of Hugh Jackman. They're of Hugh Jackman on like a magazine, and one's for like a men's magazine, and one's for a women's magazine. Now they're both of the same person, right? Hold on. That was sorry, you didn't hear that. If you heard like that window sound, that wasn't me. I'm sure it was someone else.
Was it me?
But there are
Ax, was it you?
Yeah, it was totally me. My bad, guys.
Anyway, I brought them on stream now, and I've also sent it, so you guys can see it as well. Accentia, I'm sure you guys can.
Yeah, I've seen this comparison before as
Yes,
well.
it's really it's eye-opening, isn't it? I love this comparison. These are two magazines. One's a magazine aimed towards men, one's a magazine aimed towards women. And guess which one's which? You probably the answer might just shock you that, the women are looking at the magazine on the right. The men are looking at the magazine on the left. Look at that. Ooh, look at how shredded he is. Training, nutrition, and supplements for the summer. No gym, no problem. Build peaked biceps.
The problem is that, I mean, my opinion doesn't reflect everyone else's, right? But like, for me, the problem is that like super muscular men like are scary. Like, I don't want like a partner who looks like he's gonna tear me apart. Like, I just want a partner who I can like talk to and be friends with.
Somebody asked, how is this the same person?
Yeah, I mean, the one on the right doesn't even have claws. Like, what are these unrealistic beauty
This
standards?
clearly
I
are
can't
not
grow
the same
claws.
men. But if you take those supplements, maybe you could, maybe you too could grow claws, Axe.
Oh, maybe so. Maybe.
I want to I guess
So it's a
ask-
cult.
I want to I think there's an interesting point of comparison between what men think women want, and again, this is assuming heteronormative dynamics. If you're gay, I'm sorry, a lot of the stream is not for you. But assuming heteronormative dynamics, what do there's an interesting difference between what men think women want and what women want. And it comes down to what you said earlier, Tia, right? Like perhaps some women, maybe not all, maybe some women want are looking for a guy who looks like they could just completely fold them in half, right? Maybe some women are looking for that, but maybe not all women are. And whenever we make these generalizations, whenever we engage in this gender war, and we just go, men are like this, women are like this, or if we're doing everyone, or if we're being a bit more lenient and going like, oh, some women are this and some women are that, we tend to start boxing people in when, again, I guess I can't emphasize enough the multitudes that people have and how different people's tastes can be and how varied our experiences can be. Sure, like perhaps you could draw a through line between 10, 20, 200,000 women maybe in this world, but why do you need to know how all 4 billion women think when you could just ask the girl in front of you what they think instead? That's something that's always confounded me on some level. I think there's a deeper fear. There's a deeper aversion, perhaps due to the existence of the manospheres and the cults and all that, that we have of each other. Not just, women of men, but also like men of women. It's there's a lot of talk about being big and powerful and courageous and all of those things, but you can't even ask the girl what they want. Like, you could certainly do that, and likewise the other way around. I think there's a deep fear we have of each other, and I think that fear isn't healthy. It leads to less communication, it leads to more speculation, it leads to more us going on our phones and going like, okay, what do men want? What do women want? Who cares what men and women want? Why do you want to know? You want to know because you want to date a girl, right? Okay, go and ask the girl. Like, why are you jumping all these hoops? This is one of those things that I think has been unnecessarily complicated by certain communication methods we've had, and whenever someone says phone bad, social media bad, I tend to agree. And there's been a few of those comments in today's stream as well. Social media is the fault of it, and I think it's a big part, but it definitely only plays a part, and this is the part I think it plays in.
May I go here? Like, speak? Does it mean can I speak?
Oh yeah. I thought you were gonna leave.
Anyone else? No, it was wrong. I just really wanted to. One of my regular viewers came all the way from my channel to be here today, and I wanted to shout them out. Berserker says people are always turning spectrums into binaries, and I think I'm very inclined to agree. I think that with regards to what you just said about, why don't they just ask the girl in front of them? Like, why are they why are they taking advice from men about women? And I think a lot of, I guess, misogynists, when confronted with this question, I've seen some very creative mental gymnastics in response to it. But I think we could get maybe a little philosophical here and propose that maybe it's in part because freedom is terrifying. I think that it is existentially easier to believe, even falsely believe, that life is unfair, and there are all these like unfair rules, and because of this, there's like this certain like allure of like victimhood, and this is not just something that applies to those in the manosphere. This is something that applies to a lot of like multiple different demographics, but there's like an allure in sort of viewing the world through that lens, instead of saying, no, actually I am like not really that much of a victim, and I am like kind of the master of my own destiny.
Mm-hmm.
Are you the master of your own
Master.
destiny, X?
Singling out
I like to think so. Yes, I'm the master of my fate, captain of my soul.
And I
I
do
love
want to
that.
maybe emphasize the question a bit more, and I do hopefully to guide us deeper into what I suspect is perhaps maybe a disagreement that we can kind of like share between us, X. Like, how much of this can we control? Because I think there's a temptation. There's always a temptation to say that there, an occasion when when we feel frustrated, or when we think that there's when we've tried everything and there's still no women around me. What's going on? To to blame the women. Maybe not blame the women, but to blame or to cast away our responsibility, our agency, because surely it couldn't be. We've done everything that we can, but we're still lonely, and that's definitely true to some extent. But like the extent of which I want to explore right now, like I know I can't control everything that happens in my life, but I do think there's some degree of influence I can have over opportunities that I engage with, over the people that I meet, over the way I hold myself over in conversation, the way I talk to women. I feel like I have some control over these things, some influence, but there are some things I maybe don't have as much control of. For example, I don't have control of the way women perceive me. Again, we're being very heteronormative here. The way women in a romantic context perceive me, I feel like I have no control, because on some level I'm kind of ugly, and I don't say this as like a as like a sympathetic point or whatever, and I don't exaggerate this either. I don't mean this and like it's a face reveal and I'm actually just Ryan Gosling. Like, no, like I do mean that, like I have, over the course of my 60 years on Earth, talked to women and walked away on more than one occasion with the comment or sentiment from the other party going like, Charis, this was great and I really enjoyed this. I just wish you were like, I would just wish you were more handsome. And like, that's actually something people have said to me. It's a real thing I've heard. So Axe, please tell me, how much control do you think you have over this?
Okay, wait. Can I
Yes.
just say something here? Okay.
Yes.
I was legitimately under the impression that your model artist, art team, who knows you in real life,
Yes.
based your models looks like after your like real likeness, and I think we can all agree you look pretty delicate and boyish as Charis Euphranor. Was that wrong all along?
I don't know. It's a great question, and I'm not going to I'm going to ask our team again in due time how much creative liberty was taken. But from what I understand, it's like it should be similar, but it's definitely, the kinks ironed out. It's the best parts of me. It's not the scars, the bumpiness, the my jawline is not as chiseled. It's oftentimes, as VTubers, we have models that are fictional for a reason. They are artistic interpretations of who we are. Now, how much
Okay,
of it is
no, but
interpretation,
what?
but how much of that is based on it, we'll never know, maybe. But like, I do want to maybe not stand my ground, but I do want to emphasize that again, this is a real thing that's happened to me. So I understand when you, the ugly man in question, listening to this right now, say that like, no, man, like genuinely, my looks, I'm ugly. I understand what it's like. I know what it's like to be an ugly man. Okay, I wanted to say that.
I think I think someone in chat is trying to like obtain like validation for you, and like there's like some sort of initiative of along those lines right now. Okay, I swear I'm cooking with this. I'm not just getting sidetracked talking about the three of us. Like you mentioned your jawline, but like your jawline as Charis Euphranor isn't defined either. Like it's like a girl's
Yeah, not
jawline.
enough.
Like
I need to get those toys that they sell, like those influencers, those man influencers. They sell those toys you can put in your mouth that like it's like a dog toy for men, where you put it in your mouth for like 5 hours a day. Your jaw is like sharp, right? Isn't that like the looks maxing rabbit hole? Isn't that?
Okay, that's horrible. That's okay. And also Hannah says his personality is not ugly and neither is his model. There you go.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, that's not what people. That's not what people know before. Nobody knows that I'm a VTuber when they're like talking to me face to face. But I
She
swear,
also
I want
adds
to come back. Yeah, continue.
wait, she also adds, meanwhile, I look like a thwomp vlog as a woman, like we should swap
Exu.
jawlines. I'm the thing is, like I'm the thing is I know what Hannah looks like. She looks fine. I think something tells me you don't look that bad in real life either, Karis. Because like remember what we were discussing just a little while ago about how like there's like a spectrum. Like people have different tastes. It's not like all the billions of people on Earth like are like agreed subjectively on this thing because it doesn't work that way. So I mean, I'm not claiming to be an expert on your life experience, but it could be that like the women who said those things, they just have shit taste, and actually, you're like great, you know.
Thank you.
And no, and like I'm not just saying that because I want to tell like another story, and I swear it'll be inspirational and relevant. I think you guys will like it.
Yeah, go for
Can
it.
I? Yeah, okay. Um. So the thing is, I wanna say a little bit about my husband because I know I haven't brought him up so far this stream, I don't think.
Hi,
But for
Leon.
anyone who doesn't,
We know you're
hmm?
around. Sorry, I'm just
I
saying
don't
hi
know.
to
I don't know if
him
he's
because
watching
he's in
right
chat.
now. I think, but he so for those who don't know me, I am married. Um, I've been married for 4 years, and I've been and before I was married, we were together for like 7 years. So I've been in a long-term relationship for quite a long time, pretty much ever since I became an adult. And my husband is like the point I'm trying to make is like I think my husband is like the bee's knees, but he actually like never had like a girlfriend before me. Like he was like kind of like the friend in his like university friend group who was just kind of like the like the good Christian boy. Like everyone else was, had a girlfriend or was like kind of like doing their thing, and he was just like the token single friend. But there's nothing wrong with him. Like he looks like Leon Kennedy, and he's nice and smart, and like there's nothing wrong with him. And I feel like I don't know. I don't know. So, and like the fact that that kind of thing can happen makes me think that a lot of women just have shit taste. And maybe we can talk about why that is. But um, I think that's something we have to consider and maybe acknowledge.
I mean, Leon Kennedy is a high bar.
Well, okay,
Leon
but like
Kennedy
if it's
is, yeah.
but if it's down to that, then why was he like not just like swimming in women? Like because he
This
wasn't.
is okay. I think that question will remain unanswered for the time being. Perhaps. I want to. I'm so sorry, but can I come? I really do want to come back, Ax, to like, and maybe like restate my question a bit. Like, how much of this is perhaps, you know, out of our control, perhaps even evolutionarily informed, the
Mhm.
being a man in the dating market, and how much of this is like, something we can control or maybe is socialized, do we think?
Mhm. It's a good question, and at the risk of giving a slightly annoying answer, I think it depends on the man. I do think there are some men who, unfortunately, begin from such a disadvantage in terms of looks that there is not a realistic hope of their finding a partner. And I think it's important to be honest when that is the case. Not to say that it's impossible for those men or that they shouldn't try, but I do think that that is a reality that many men just have to face. Now, there are some men who are a bit higher on the ladder of conventional attractiveness, maybe not super attractive, maybe they're just around average, maybe they have, some trouble getting into relationships. I think for men like that, there is more control that they have, depending on how they behave and so on. Perhaps they can find a partner, or perhaps they might run into difficulties. But at the very least, there's more control for men in that circumstance. And then, of course, the men at the top of attractiveness would certainly have the easiest time. So that's broadly how I view it. If I could also just, while I'm speaking here, say something in response to a point that came just slightly before that, though I think it also perhaps ties into this one. You asked a very good question earlier, Charis, when you talked about the aversion that we sometimes have to each other, and why do men not just ask the girl in front of them, what she likes? Why do they seek out the advice from other men? Why not just like go out and talk, to women? Is that
Mhm.
really such a revolutionary concept? And there is at least one thing I can say that I think might gesture in the direction of an answer. I don't know if this will explain it completely, but I do want to say that I think part of it, and I should also preface this by saying I realize this will be a somewhat controversial view. I don't think everyone will agree with me on this, but I do think part of it is that in our culture, there is a certain aversion to or disdain for male sexuality. And what I mean by that is that straight male sexuality, in particular, I think is often demonized as predatory or as objectifying or as harassing or as creepy. And the natural result of this is that many men approach women less, if at all. I can say here that for many or most men, one of the worst feelings in the world is if they approach a woman and then they see signs from her that she is creeped out by them, or that they've made her day worse. That feeling of, oh, like, have I ruined this person's day? Or, oh, this person finds me creepy. That just feels awful. And many men will do almost anything to avoid that. And so naturally, to them, it seems like a less risky option to consult other men, to find out what women like, or at least what women like, according to men who seem successful in advance of actually talking to the woman. I think there's a perception that, like, if they just go up and talk to a woman first without knowing for sure what kind of, approaches she likes or what kinds of things that she's into, if they don't get it right, then that's going to blow all of their chances, at least with that particular woman. And I think that's a very understandable, very rational perception given how competitive the dating market is. And that goes back to your experience, Karis, of seeing that particular woman swipe left so much on the dating app. There's a perception, I think a very true perception, that like if you do one thing wrong, then that's it. You're not going to have a chance with that person anymore. So I think it's very understandable that men sort of feel this way and seek the guidance from other men. Not only that, but also just on top of that, the risk of if they give an awkward approach, make an awkward pass at someone and get rejected, that they might then be ridiculed in group chats or blasted on social media by that woman and by her friends, because that happens all the time. And so I think that in light of all this, it's I think I want to say I sympathize very deeply with men who seek the advice of other men before actually going and talking to women.
Mm-hmm. I
Um,
sorry. Do you wanna go first, yeah?
yeah, there was something I wanted to say. I'm not sure if your point or my point would work better first, but if you're all right, I can take the lead here. Um, I think that I just want to say that there's I think a lot of difference between um simple advice and then um I think another like there's different things we can mean when we say advice. We could just really just mean advice, or we could just say like the absolute I guess kind of like very stigmatizing in misogynistic misinformation that sometimes gets spread about women, like myths about how all women are this and all women are that. Like I I think that's one thing we have to keep in mind. Another thing is that the takeaway I'm getting here is that um what is partly happening with the male loneliness epidemic is that um all men are like but like are many men are kind of like getting punished collectively for the actions of some men. And we saw this come up earlier as well, when we were talking about how like a lot of like a lot of people, a lot of women like don't really have empathy for lonely men, because like the issue has kind of this connotation that it's like just like incels and just like hateful, like and actually like more, maybe more like specifically like misogynist, like it's just like those kinds of men. Like why should they deserve our empathy? And um beyond the whole stuff about abuse, it is important to note that although due to certain, I guess, facts about the social media and like the news media, although those men may be highly visible, I think they are may perhaps like a minority, or there are at least just as many men out there who are like innocent, like have any of you like either either of you guys or like in chat, like have you ever seen that like that clip of like that one, like some kind of like British like puppet show where there's with a puppet saying like we're just innocent men. Like my husband like loves that clip because of how. Have you seen that one,
I
Karis?
know. I love that one too. I love that clip.
See,
I know
I've,
that
I've
clip. Yes.
I've noticed a lot of men seem to like really like that one. And I think it's because it speaks to something about their experience where, um, like I think there's something maybe a little subversive about the phrase innocent men. I think that we could even say that based on sort of traditional gender norms, that's even an oxymoron because man kind of like usually has the like unfortunate connotation of being kind of like aggressive and violent and predatory and a lot of like very negative things. So the idea of an innocent man, or like we're just innocent men, is just kind of like it's kind of refreshing, and I think it captures a certain truth for a lot of people. And I've read based on my experiences in communities like reset era, like male dominated communities that are like nevertheless like not incel communities, and like what I've seen is that there are like loads and loads and loads of men out there who are, why not identify as incels and, are not like politically conservative and are not hateful, but they are suffering silently, because they know that, they know all about like the idea of like male privilege and how, maybe they feel like kind of like guilty about being a man. Like if they would speak up, if they spoke up, it would somehow take away from women's issues. Or maybe they have even faced like people, discouraging them from speaking up in the past. And like they haven't done anything wrong, except like they're just existing quietly and trying to, bear their burden without anyone knowing about it. And those men are victims of the male loneliness epidemic too. We just don't see, and we just don't see, we just don't hear about them. And even my husband, to some extent, is one of them. Even though we've been together for a long time, I mean, he like, had a life before me, and even if we're married now, it doesn't mean like he can't have any issues in his life. There is one conversation we had a few years ago, that stuck with me all this time, and I think I can't remember how this came up, but he told me he didn't feel like he was good enough, and I didn't know how he could say that, and where that could come from, considering I basically like look up to him and respect him so much. I think he's, like not just good looking, but he's like, he's witty and strong, and like attentive, and he's a good partner in so many ways. And it's not
Sorry.
it's not just hey,
No, I
and,
read
and it's like,
Leon's comment. Did you see Leon's comment?
and it's not. Oh, now I'm seeing it too. Okay, I have to deal with Tia doing hour-long streams with other men. Yes, that's your problem. You suffer so much. um, but it's like not just me that has a high opinion of him. Like I feel like, from knowing him for so long, like everywhere he goes, like people respect him. Um, every workplace he's been at, he always ends up being in sort of positions of like leadership, and it's like, even with all of that, even with being gainfully employed and having a beautiful wife and like just a lot of things that a lot of other men would kill for, he still doesn't feel like he's good enough. And that was one of the one of the things from the past several years, like one of the catalysts that helped me see this issue from the perspective of men. And I think someone asked earlier, like if Leon like has it rough, like what chance do the rest of us have? And it's like, yeah, like that's the whole point. Like even innocent men who have all of these positive qualities can be suffering. Then well, what's it going to be like for other men?
Can I just play the clip really
Very,
quickly?
very well said.
I'm gonna play the clip really quickly for everyone in chat.
You
who doesn't
found
know.
it.
Yeah, I know. I
Yeah,
have the clip.
yeah.
Where is it?
We're not high stars, Lauren. We're just normal men.
I see the human resources meme.
Was that what you meant to put up?
No.
Just innocent men.
Wait, why is that up then?
Sorry, that was an earlier thing I forgot to remove. It's just been here the entire time. No, I just wanted to show this bit. We're just normal men. We're just innocent men.
Normal men.
Behind us.
We're not high stars, Lauren. We're just
Well,
normal
thank you for showing
men.
all that, Tia. That was very nicely said.
Wait,
There's-
the picture's still popping. Oh, yeah.
Just innocent men.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm done.
No, I can't hear it. I can't.
Okay, you
Wait,
guys
oh, wait,
can't
no.
hear it, but they love
I
it.
can't-
The audience
Okay.
absolutely loves this. No, it's fine. It's
Okay,
gone now. It's gone.
just making
sure.
Charis, I feel like, and well, of course, I mean, there are several things that I think are interesting and that I could say to follow up on some of the thoughts that have been shared. But I feel like it's been a while since you've gotten to talk, Charis, was there anything that you wanted to say?
I wanted to earlier. I kind of just had this image up, and
Yeah.
like I didn't really talk about it, but I just wanted to say, is it okay? Can we first just very quickly can we get our thoughts on the image? Right, we know this is a classic meme that's been on the internet for very long, for very long time. This one right here. Know the work rules, appropriate, and then in the top panel, it's like this conventionally handsome, attractive man saying something in a speech bubble, and then the woman goes, "Oh, you're so sweet," with like a heart. And then on the bottom panel, it's like a different guy, who is significantly uglier, at least conventionally, and there it's labeled inappropriate. He just says something, and the lady goes, "Hello, human resources." Now this is really funny, I think, and part of the reason why it's funny is because there is just a little bit of an inkling of what I suspect might be maybe not the truth, but it corresponds to reality in some way, and I think it's very relevant to our discussions, right? The appropriate versus inappropriate, like what's one is okay and one's not okay, and it seems that the only difference is how attractive the man is. I feel like this comes back to some of the earlier points we mentioned about how, like if you mess up your one opportunity talking to this person, it feels like it's over, the social interaction is over, and like I'm just wondering what the both of you think of this meme and like what it's trying to say.
I can offer my thoughts, but before we get into that, I just want to like follow up on like the previous thing that was talked about
Okay.
and wrap
Yes.
that up first.
Yes.
I see some couple of comments in chat I want to respond to. First of all, I see one saying Tia being respected is different from being wanted. I don't disagree, but I don't think there's any need to address me in that kind of tone. For the record, the story that I shared just now was an event that happened like at least 3 years ago. It didn't happen yesterday, so I am in fact well aware of that facet of men's experience, and as well. Viking said just innocent men, and the woman just laughs at him. I mean, I can't. Um, I don't personally. I don't think that the woman's laughter was intended to be sort of like insulting. I think it just goes back to what I said, that I think in our society, like the phrase "innocent men" is kind of an oxymoron. Like that's just not two words you hear side by side like very often for reasons I went over already. So I think just the suddenness like and absurdity of it made it funny. A lot of things that we find funny are things that are surprising or novel in some way, and that's just what I think. But anyway, we wanted to talk about that the human resources meme. So, Ax, if you'd like to offer your thoughts first, that's fine with me.
Okay. Yeah, I do think there's a good deal of truth to that meme. Earlier, I spoke about how there's sort of an undercurrent in our culture of viewing straight male sexuality negatively, of viewing it, for example, as objectifying or as predatory or as harassing or as creepy. I do think that that is very much modulated by the attractiveness of the male in question. If it's someone who's unattractive, they're not going to be able to get away with, for lack of a better phrasing, nearly as much as someone who is very attractive. And I think that's just, I'm not assigning blame to anyone or anything like that. I'm just, that's part of just living in the real world, is recognizing that attractiveness is a huge privilege, and this is one of the ways that it crops up. I think it's especially significant now, though. Maybe it's more of the phenomenon being reported in that meme, or being sort of alluded to in that meme, I think is likely more prevalent now than it was in the past, in part because of the rise of dating apps, with how they've exploded in popularity as a way of forming relationships. One effect of dating apps is that physical attractiveness is much more important and emphasized, I think, in dating these days than it was in the past. With the way that dating apps work, photos tend to be front and center. They tend to be the focus. While there is some space to describe your interest and your personality, it's really not very much. And on that note, they're actually are data showing that short bios, at least on Tinder, outperform long ones pretty substantially, by 73%, in fact. And so there's just this general current, this general element, this general focus on attractiveness, physical attractiveness, and I think that that plays out even in IRL social situations, beyond just online dating. And so, yeah, those are, I guess, my thoughts on that meme in particular.
I mean, sorry, you go.
Oh, what was your point quick? Because mine's not quick. So if yours quick, maybe you should go first.
I was just gonna say, like, the sentiment, I think it holds true to some extent, that like physical attraction is held, you know, more important nowadays, and part of that might be due to the nature of dating apps. And somebody commented earlier how dating apps treat treat the people who use it, at least, like, not so much as like people, but more so as like products, right? Or like your potential dating partners are just, like, it's almost like you're at the supermarket and there's a shelf of potential people that you could swipe right or left on, and it's like it's your pickings and choosings, but you pick and choose like in seconds, right? Like you only have a few seconds to look at someone's profile, you only have seconds to look at someone's images and then their text, and that's all you get to glean from that person. And because of that, well, what do you have left to work with? Well, that's probably true that it's their physical attraction. It's probably true that it's their shorter profile. I do want to like add one more thing to the meme, where I think it's very much possible for the person on the top panel to also be interpreted by a Hello Human Resources, and that is if they're acting creepily. Now, I don't want to like enter the realm of that too much, because I think Tia has something to say as well. But it's something I want to maybe like touch on a little later, where it's the physical attraction is how physically attractive you are might be one thing, but I feel as though it's overemphasized compared to like just how you behave socially, how you talk to people, how you treat them, how how you interact in a social environment. That is also very much a part of whether or not it's "oh, you're so sweet" and "hello Human Resources." But sorry, Tia, I know you had something to say, so I'm just gonna pass it to you.
I feel like this is a good point in the discussion to bring it up, and I predict that this is not going to sit well with some people, but I'm gonna say it anyway because I think it's important and it is what I truly believe, and that I am probably the person in this trio best suited to say this. But Charis, I think we were talking about this together just the other day. I think you were the one who brought up that meme. That is like a tweet from a woman. I think like a black woman going, "I do not support all women. Some of you bitches are very dumb." Did you was that not the you're like looking
Sorry,
like
I'm like
you're
looking for it right now. I'm like looking for it right now. Hold on. I've almost got it. I have it. I have it here. I have it here. I do not support all women. Some of you bitches are very dumb. It's true. It's true.
In the realm of indubitable truths, one might say.
This was
like
this was in the stream yesterday. Yeah.
yeah. That was that did that get brought up yesterday? Oh yeah, I think
Yes.
it
This
did.
was
Now,
yesterday's stream,
yes.
yes.
Oh yes, you're jogging my memory. So like I think this so give us some leeway here. I think there's room for nuance, and I think it's okay for us to be saying this right now because this group includes a woman. So hi, I'm Tia Fair. I'm the token woman in this group, and I can attest that these two guys beside me are not misogynistic, and this is like an actual like fair like criticism we are trying to put forth. Particularly as not just any woman, but as an abuse survivor. I very strongly believe that not all women are good people, and I genuinely think that women should be held accountable for their mistakes and I guess, bad beliefs more often in our society. I I think that I think this is something that a lot of women in our broader society is still really slow to get on board with for a number of reasons. I think one is that wait, now I'm thinking. I think there was either a point earlier that I started making and didn't get to finish making, or like I never made it in the first place. Did you guys hear me get to talk about collective punishment? I talked about that, right? Am I going
Yes.
crazy? Why
That came up, yeah.
why did I suddenly feel like I never talked about that? Okay. Um so what I'm saying right now, I think feeds back into a couple things that came up earlier, and one of them was even just the Charis's anecdote that came up towards the very start of the stream about his one like female friend who like busted out her phone like mid convo and started like swiping left like there was like no tomorrow, like yeah, like that stuff, like that kind of behavior is not okay. Um, I think that we are slow to get on board with this notion because we still live in a society that has this framework of like, well, misogyny is the main problem, like men are the main problem, and like we're still working on that, and our the current gender norms still I think the current gender norms are still that men are like kind of like inherently more powerful and with it more predatory, while women are weaker but also like more innocent and like less blameworthy for their actions, less accountable for their actions. And I actually think that this is a norm that has to go in order for us to have like real equality and more prosperity for everybody. Um, and I think, and I can offer like a couple of examples of like the kind of thing I mean. There's stories that are like maybe like spiritually not so different from the ones from the one that Kara's told. For example, at when my husband was at his old job, apparently he had like one coworker who was like talking to him about like her dating experience, and um she was like as I recall the story, she was like really short. Actually she was like of Vietnamese heritage like me, but like I'm like not short, I'm average height, but she was like sub 5 foot, right? I'm 5'4", and like she was like dating, she was like older than my husband, and she was like dating, and she was like seeing this guy who was like she described as like perfectly and like nice, like there was nothing wrong with him, and he was like 5'9", as I recall it, and she was like, I don't know. I kind of like. I think you should be. I kind of would be. I want someone taller. And my husband was telling me the story, and I was thinking, like, sister, what are you saying? Like, he's like perfectly nice in every other way, and your 5'9" is like not tall enough, even though that's like a whole ass foot taller than you. Like, what are you saying? Like 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 for the record, like I once, like one of my exes was like the same height as me, like he was short, but he was a good dude, like that kind of thing. Like I think we feel like we should actually call out women when they um do things like say like, oh, my husband, like I want my partner, my male partner, to make more money than me. It's kind of like, but why is that important? Like you exist in the 21st century, like you are, like you've been like emancipated, you are like, you're a strong independent woman, or are you not? Like, you're making that bag, like why does like why does your partner or husband or whatever have to make more money than you? Like outside of like a purely like pragmatic scenario of like, if you have like no income and it's just like you're just like pragmatically concerned about like survival. But like outside of that, like if you have your own income, Why is that necessary? Like but then the thing is, it's not. It's actually sexist. I think it's sexist. But we just don't call it out because like we're still like zeroed in on misogyny as an issue, and it's kind of sad because I think that so far attempts to kind of I like just hold women accountable for their actions have been resisted with the framing that actually it would be misogynistic to do so because like actually women just it's just like because of like patriarchy, because of like women act this way. But like I don't think that yeah, I just don't agree with that. I think that like I think that like restrictive gender norms are something that both men and women perpetuate and suffer from. And it's like Charis kind of said earlier that it's something we should be working together with to resolve, because this is not something we can kind of just like throw exclusively in the corner of men and tell them to like sort it out, because that's what a lot of people do. They will like look at the male loneliness and epidemic and go like, well, I see that it is men who this is happening to, so clearly it is like only men's problem. We women, we're gonna like wash our hands of it. We're only victims, and it's like, but you're not only victims. Like women can perpetuate the issue too. For like another example, like earlier I was talking about child abuse and child neglect, right? And how like a lot of the issue of like boys being radicalized, like that stuff starts in childhood. It doesn't start with men. It starts with boys. And the thing is, like the majority of child caregivers, child rearers in like the United States are still women, and that means that women have a part to play in this, and to like take an interest in the inner lives of their sons and the other men in their lives. I think that there's another like on a similar note, there's this like really unfortunate thing. Actually, maybe I'll let someone else bring this up, but did we want to talk about the whole thing about what men report experiencing if they cry in front of their partners? Axion?
Well, sure. I do think that would be interesting to talk about. But first, I do want to hear, Karis, was there anything you wanted to say in light of, I guess, all the points that Tia just shared?
I think I kind of wanted honestly jump straight to that. I think that's good. I think that I think that we've had that flow going. What happens when, as men, we show emotion in front of other women?
Yeah, they tend not to like it. Is I think one way of summarizing a lot
Now,
of
let's not
men's
hastily
experiences on this one.
generalize, but there is a certain there is a reported understanding that in many relationship dynamics, not just ones that are purely romantic, but like oftentimes men are discouraged by the women around them from showing any emotion other than justified anger, basically. But in particular, when it is a showing of weakness, of vulnerability, of when a man sheds a tear, when a woman sheds a tear, it's like, well, yes, of course, this will happen. This happens, and we understand the emotions that people feel. But then when a man sheds a tear, it's like, oh, it has to be a manly tear. It can't just be any tear. You can't be sobbing. You can't be crying like a girl. You must cry like a man, or not cry at all. Just sort of rage against the injustice, and then do something about it with your with your hands. You gotta put yourself in there. Yes, women get the ick, as someone said, whenever men tend to express themselves emotionally. I was wondering, Ax, if you would like to I guess continue that train of thought.
True. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that absolutely is something that happens, that many men have, experiences of that. And we could, of course, debate, why that is. What is it that causes these reactions from women? Is it socialization? Is it perhaps something that could be explained by evolutionary psychology? I'm not sure if I want to wade into my full view on that right now. I think it would probably be more productive if I let both of you address that question first before I say anything. But as for the question, is it a real phenomenon? I absolutely agree that it is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I see. For some reason, it's now showing sorry, I just got distracted by the stream being like super delayed on my part. Anyway, um, I was something. Okay, now this caught my eye. Viking asked, "Would you want to be in the forest with a man or a bear?" I'm gonna go ahead and answer this. I'd rather meet a man in the forest because at least it has a chance of being Axion. But
Okay,
wow.
can we get like a real answer? Ah, boo, boo. Let's get a
Okay.
real answer here. Come on.
It would still be man because like a man like has like assuming like he's like an English speaking man or like speaks one of the languages like I speak, like I can like communicate with him, right? It's actually, if you're like realistic about it, like I mean, sure, there's like a chance that he could be like, I don't know, like Ted Bundy #2 and like like dismember me, but like with like a bear there's like a near like 100% chance of that. So if you're thinking realistically, the chances of like yeah, like I mean, it actually is pretty likely you will just meet like a normal dude, and then everything will go fine. And I think that actually ties, at least in some way, to the question of why is it does that happen? Why do men who cry in front of their partners experience that? And like I think it comes down to resentment. Like I see Hannah providing an explanation in chat, seeing like the meme answer is the bear because being mauled by a man is incomparable to the trauma of being like essayed by a man in the woods or whatever, which like I get, but like that's just a meme, right? Like if you're thinking about like realistically, it should like rationally it should be a man. And the reason this meme exists at all is, I think, because of resentment. And this resentment is understandable. It doesn't come from absolutely nowhere. I have seen a lot of women speak online about being absolutely terrified of men. They may be attracted to men, but are really don't know how to go about dating men as well, because they feel that any potential man has this high chance of being like a predator, and it paralyzes them. And maybe it's at risk of sounding glib, because I think it's fair to say that my experiences as a woman are a little bit atypical. I The abuse that I faced throughout my life was at the hands of women rather than men. My abuser was actually my own mother, and besides that, I was also very much bullied by girls growing up. Whereas my experiences with men have been relatively positive. I've had a lot of close relationships with men throughout my life. However, I am aware that for many other women, the experience is it's more common for the experience to be the opposite, with having negative experiences with men that color their worldviews and perceptions. Um, and and so what we see is, I think, like there is a certain like cohort of men out there who do act in predatory and exploitative ways, and it just gets like extrapolated to all men, because women feel, perhaps sometimes rightfully, that they cannot take the risk. They cannot take certain risks, and the resentment towards men as sources of danger, and manifests in a lot of ways. But I think that the whole it's like resentment, and it's also just like gender norms that say that men are providers, and they're supposed to be strong, and they're supposed to be this and that. And I think the like the like breaking up and with like breaking up with like your male partner who cries is downstream of that. I think that for a lot of women, they feel even if they are in a relationship with a man, their resentment towards men is such that, at least on a subconscious level, they don't feel like their male partner should have a right to suffer more than them, or even like suffer at all. They just think that men, their husband or their boyfriend should just be a provider, and and I think that it's I don't know, like, there's a little more I could say, but I think it might be veering into a different topic. I know I've been talking for a while, so I'll let someone else go.
What do I do if I cry a lot and I'm also ugly?
Uh,
What's the solution, Doc?
Cry a lot, but I am so productive. It's an art. Sorry.
What do we do? What do we do, Axe? What do we do as men who are like
I
It's almost like I'm role playing with you. Like, please play along. What do I do if I am ugly and I cry a lot? You have to win the lottery, someone says.
I think are we so, wait, someone actually said that. Are we talking about solutions now? Do you want to talk about solutions now?
I think I'm in that mindset. I think I'm ugly and I cry a lot and I'm not particularly wealthy and I haven't looks maxed my way through it and I certainly can't afford an Andrew Tate course. So like, what do I do if I'm lonely in the current world of dating?
Ax, do you want to go first?
Well, I can. I'm happy to go first, though. I'm wondering if there's a point I could introduce about more of the previous thing, and I'm wondering if I should, um, or
It
it might just
sounds
be
like
best to
do it
move on.
over quickly. Yeah, you definitely
it
can.
sounds like you would like to.
Okay. Well, I guess one thing I'm wondering is, Tia, you spoke about how perhaps part of the reason for women's intolerance of male emotionality, insofar as there is such intolerance, is due to norms of men as providers. Like thinking, okay, like that's what a man should be. I
Mm-hmm.
wonder, in your view, do those norms come simply from the culture, or is there a biological basis for those norms?
Um, sure. I think I'd be happy to answer that. I'm glad you asked. Um, I guess the most responsible thing to say here is that it is difficult to say for certain, right? I think like the whole debate over like nature versus nurture is one that has been raging on in the scientific community for decades upon decades. So I think it is most responsible to say that we don't know for sure. However, based on what we do know, I think it would be fair to say that both probably play some role, and it's not just one or the other. Um, and I think that there's some promise in that. Um, I think that a lot of the phenomenon of men's emotions being viewed as disdainful, um, you know, both by other men and by women, is something that it's not just like innate. Like it is in I think it is in large part due to our culture and our socialization, and it can be changed. I think one thing that points to this is the fact that even though it is still an ongoing problem, I think it is changing slowly. I think over in recent years, I've seen more and more stories online about women reporting caring for their partners emotionally and doing so proudly, and men reporting finding emotionally supportive partners. I, for my part, I my husband, like Leon, has cried in front of me, and I don't think that's something like embarrassing or shameful to share. And I always like remind him that he is like allowed to do so, and like I will like support him and like not judge him or try to restrict him. And then, that said, like I know the issue is not maybe changing as fast as it maybe needs to, and that the alternative still happens. For my part, the whole phenomenon of men who cry being like broken up with. I've seen a lot of stories about that in the comment sections of like Healthy Gamer GG channel. If any of you know like Dr. K. It's one of my favorite YouTube channels. But I've seen like a lot of men there talk about share like anecdotes about crying and then like having their like girlfriends break up with them, and like I believe them. Like when I read those stories, I believe them, and I think it's very sad. And I think that this like dovetails nicely into the next segment of the discussion, or I think what it will probably be the final segment, which will be about potential solutions to the male loneliness epidemic. And I could continue and start off, or I could give someone else the floor.
I'm happy either way. Charis, was there anything you wanted to say?
That I'm sad and lonely and ugly and I cry. What do I do?
So it's
I'm
yeah,
cooked.
you're
I'm cooked. Right? Or am I?
so I mean, I could go. Do you want to go, Ax, or should I go?
Okay, well, it's interesting that it's being framed. I like this way of framing it, but initially when I was thinking about this stream, I was thinking, okay, yeah, like what are some potential solutions to the male loneliness crisis? And I was thinking of like, very broad level things that like a society might do to try to make this problem less prevalent. But yeah, in terms of just giving advice to a particular individual, I think that it's in some ways a little trickier, but nevertheless, I will try to say a few things. I can certainly say some things that I think are not good solutions or not good, pieces of advice to give, which are often given nevertheless, but I'll just start there and then maybe work up to some better pieces of advice. So I think probably the worst thing one could give as counsel to someone who says something like that of like, oh, I'm unattractive and I cry a lot, what can I do to find a partner? Probably the worst thing you could say is to tell them to just get a better personality or just be confident or just treat women like human beings or just take a shower or any of the other things that are said to
Someone says
people.
bone smashing in the comments.
So yeah, because I think like the thing with that is any advice that just amounts in effect to like just be a good person and you'll find someone, it's well intentioned, but I do think it's ultimately toxic because then the natural conclusion that someone is left with who is trying and not finding anyone is I must be a horrible person. And it's just not true in many cases. So my first piece of advice to anyone who is suffering in that circumstance would be to remember your value as a person and to remember that it does not depend on what others think about you, including whether you have a partner. I don't think that that's, of course, a complete solution, but I do think that's at least a start. Something that should help is to remember your own value as a person. For similar reasons, I would absolutely refrain from telling someone in that circumstance, it'll happen someday, because I don't know that. It would be presumptuous of me to claim that. Any cheap platitude that I could try to offer them for like the chances are it's already become nauseating to them after hearing it year after year. And there are for many people, after all, for whom it never happens. I think that the most we can offer to men in that circumstance is to say that you are a person of value, regardless of your dating circumstances, your dating life. I hope that you'll be able to find a partner, but if you're not able to, I hope you're able to at least find some sources of fulfillment outside of romance. And perhaps that's something I can help with. If you would like a friend, I'm here to be your friend. I'm here if you need someone to talk to. I think really, in the end, perhaps that's the most that we can offer. is just our understanding and compassion.
I think that I'm just gonna go ahead and speak here.
Yes, yes, yes.
I think all of that was very well said, Ax. I think it's very like you to try to remind people that they have value, and independently of what other people think about them, and what kind of relationships they have. And I would very much like to agree. When it comes to solutions, I have my own answer to this that I think takes a different approach from Axion's, but hopefully complements it. And what I want to say is, I think that there is not really, the answer is, I think the solution will not at all be simple or straightforward to implement, because ultimately I think the problem is tied up in a lot of like macro factors that are beyond our direct control, such as what's going on with the like economy and politics and social media platforms and so on and so forth. I think that, but in terms of what we can more directly control, I think that the male loneliness epidemic is just actually a symptom, although a particularly large symptom of just the broader issue with restrictive gender norms that persist in our society, that govern what a man should be, what a woman should be, and how we should behave, and how we're socialized, and things like that. I think sort of like jumping off from what I was saying earlier, just as the idea of an innocent man seems novel and absurd to us, so is the idea of inaccountable woman. And I think that we have to start overturning these sorts of norms in order to make progress. And I know, once again, that there may be a lot of resistance to this from women who, often already feel that they are, victims, and they are suffering so much, and they are suffering because of the system and because of other people's actions. Like so like, what do you mean? Like, I'm accountable. What am I accountable for? Isn't it other people that are doing all this to me? But the thing is, like, if you are like an adult, woman living in a first world country, chances are, sure, even if you don't have all the power in the world or have complete control over your life, you do have quite a bit of agency. And I think that, how do I say this? I think like we as women should sort of rise up and claim that agency, and that doing so will be good for us. It's not just going to be good for men, it'll be good for us. I think that it is the right thing to do, and it will lead us to true equality. I don't think that, like, I actually sorry, this is like kind of like abstract, so it's a bit like hard to like articulate my view here. What I'm trying to say is, like, when it comes to like misogyny, one of my like least favorite, like one of my personal like least favorite like aspects about it, which like may not be shared with anybody else because I'm justice incarnate and I'm pretty idiosyncratic, I know, is the the notion that women are not moral agents, and by that I mean like how, like, if you think of like men throughout history, like men can be anything morally. Like, they can be really good. They can be heroes, and they can save the day. They can be like knights in shining armor, and they can be chivalrous and valorous, and and of course they can also be like villains and scoundrels, right? And like women are just like historically have just been like neither of those things. They were like just damsels in distress. They were just objects. They were not, agents. They were not moral actors. They did not make their own choices. And I think that in our modern society, I think like what we've been seeing is that even though women have been like even though like the playing field has been leveled in a lot of other granted very important ways, like when it comes to like education, like voting rights and things like that, I think on a more like cultural rather than legal level, I think there's still a reluctance to view women as moral agents, and both by men and by women themselves. And like there's still this tendency to see women, and especially like I think like mothers, as being inherently you know innocent, and even if they do something bad, it's like someone else's fault. And I think like all that has to change, and I say that very solemnly and gravely as someone who was abused at the hands of her own mother. I think women, we can handle having more accountability, and it might seem like a bad thing at first, but I think it will. It actually will pave the way to a better world. And at the same time, I think the mirror side of that is that we need to recognize that men can be innocent, and that men are as deserving of unconditional love as everybody else. And I believe that everybody deserves unconditional love, for that matter. If you want to know more about what I mean by that, I did a stream about what unconditional love is on my channel. And that means that when men suffer, we should listen, and try to like believe and get to know their stories, and show them the appropriate empathy and compassion. And yeah, is there anything else I need to say here? Like, I think actually, yeah, I think I can think of like one small thing to add. All right, maybe two small things. Sorry, I know this is a lot, but um, I think like as along with treating men with like empathy and compassion, I think like if like right now part of like the definition of like masculine worth is someone who is like does the ooh la la a lot with women, let's say. I think and then if at the same time we consider that maybe some men are just like not going to be dateable, and it's not just men, like women too. There are also female incels, although they tend not to like drive cars over people and receive as much media attention, but they're out there. But like if some women are just or not some women, if some people are just not going to be like attractive, then I think clearly the conclusion is that it would be unjust to base anybody's worth on their romantic success. And so I think it is very much imperative that we as a culture decouple men's worth from their romantic success. And then and then and then here's something that ties into something from earlier that I forgot to like, I don't know. I think I don't. I'm not sure if I forgot to note it or if I was like saving it for later. But what it is I think that I think when it comes to again about the whole like why do men who like like why do women break up with their male partners who cry? I suspect that like again like there's an element of it that is like, oh, like I need my man to be a provider, and if he's not a provider, that's like existentially scary, and then that's why I become like kind of like uncomfortable and disgusted. um I think that like once again the solution there is like for I think women to recognize their own strength. um and I think this is sort of, I think again maybe a bit difficult to articulate, but I think a lot of women actually still have internalized misogyny and don't actually, um, on some level, they don't actually think of themselves as being equal to men, even if they might say they might want to think that. I think that there's some doubt hidden in there that they're not like aware of. I think that if you are a woman and if you recognize your own strength and are you are equal in every way to a man, you will not be put off by his crying because you can handle it. He doesn't need to be the sole provider because you are too. You can do those things. You can provide like emotionally and in today's economy. Hopefully, you can also provide materially. He doesn't need to be doing it 100% of the time, and so there's no reason to be uncomfortable. I think I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that I think this would be really good based on my like own experiences because um I know I'm like maybe a bit atypical, but I like to think of myself as a strong person. And in fact, I think like the thing I'm trying to say is that like a lot of women just like kind of I think they just automatically like shoo themselves into like the victim category and like assume like okay like if there's a like male loneliness epidemic then I can't do anything, like I won't be able to convince any of the men of anything, like it's only other men can do something about it, so I'll let them handle it. And I think that I just don't think that's true. I truly think that not women, not they can and they should play a more active role in this. Like in my like experience, like I've been like fortunate enough to find myself in like the capacity or the role of being able to be a role model to men, like especially like younger men, since I'm like in my 30s now. But it is like possible, like don't like if you're a woman, like don't count yourself out and like automatically think like, oh, because like I'm a woman and like he's a man, like he won't listen to me, because you're just like internalizing like misogyny by like doing that. Like you gotta try, like you gotta believe in yourself, like it can be done. Like I've done it. I know it, like it's not guaranteed and it's not necessarily easy. It doesn't always happen, but it can be done. And I can say that like that's something like I find a lot of like fulfillment in. I have a bit of like a hero complex. I like the idea of like saving people and being there for people. So I think that's something more women should consider, and that we need to basically upheave these gender norms. And I think that as that happens, hopefully men will be, like again better able to have relationships, and even if they don't find particular relationships with other people, at least they can have a solid relationship with themselves and value themselves, as Axion said.
Thank you for that, Tia. Karis, I'm curious. What would you, well, I mean, first, I guess your comment brings up a lot of points we could touch on more, Tia. So I don't want to come across as setting them aside, but I am really curious to hear what you would say, Karis, about like if somebody came to you saying, "Hey, I'm unattractive and I cry a lot and I'm having lots of trouble finding a partner. What do I do?" Like what would you say to that person?
What I have said in the past is same. No, what I have said in the past is, damn, that does fucking suck. You want to grab a drink and talk about it? And then we grabbed a drink and talked about it and every time that's happened, and it's happened with multiple people, multiple men who have said very similar things, at least as a sort of like as a beginner, right? As like I'm ugly and I'm emotionally, I maybe not like I cry a lot, but generally it tends to be I'm ugly and I don't know what to do, and like I can't find women. What do I do? Help me. Looking to me as this beacon of guidance because they're like, you did a philosophy, you were smart, right, Charis Euphranor? Please tell me what to do with my life. And I go, okay, let's sit down and talk about it. And that's, I think, like that is not the prelude to the response, I think that is the response, actually. At least that's the first step of it. The first step of it is going like, yeah, that is a problem. That is real. That sucks. And, it's unfortunate that you're experiencing this. Let's explore that, not from like a theoretical point of view, because one of the things that happens when people approach you as a philosopher is they think they want the philosophy, but they actually don't want the philosophy, at least not immediately. They don't want to immediately, hear the sort of the structures of society, at least in a way that's actually like intellectually rigorous. They want, like, at most, if they want to hear it, it should be in sound bites, in like, gender war format, right? That's the only way people are receptive to it, at least initially. And so what I tend to do, or at least how I tend to respond to men who've come to me seeking such advice, is firstly to sit them down and go, okay, but what is the root of it? Why is it that you're suffering? Why is it that you feel so bad about this right now? Let's first have that conversation. I think it then, veers and branches into various aspects of their lives. And, it all tends to boil down to, if I'm to make a generalization about my own anecdotal experiences, not a lack of socialization per se, but just like opportunities socially that haven't presented themselves, but it seemed to them like they were supposed to be promised to them. And it seemed as though all the people who have come to me with that problem were under some sort of impression that, like, love just happens, or like, like it presents itself, it knocks at the door. And if you just go to a class, or if you go to a hobby group, or you do this X thing that people online have told you to do, you will magically find a girlfriend, or like a boyfriend, or like, magically find a partner. That doesn't seem to be always the case. And sometimes it just doesn't happen. Sometimes you don't find a romantic prospect. And I think the most helpful thing I can say to anyone who is, seeking romantic prospect is almost paradoxically not to seek it. Do things that put you in the stream of it. Do things, put yourself in situations where it could arise, and should it arise, you are prepared for it. For example, dress well at all times, be presentable. Don't just be presentable to one event because you think that's the event where you were going to get the chicks. Don't do that, okay? Like show up to an event, all events, looking presentable, being your best self. Try to be charismatic, not just, when you think there are women around, but just in general. Engage in things that are fun and interesting, that explore, that allow yourself to explore your hobbies and your passions and your interests, and know that maybe you'll find love, but maybe you won't. And you just kind of have to be okay with the disappointment that comes with, the statistically more probable option that you do not find your soulmate or the love of your life at some thing. And that it's like, numerically, that's okay. You don't have to think I'm doing something wrong. I just have to bone smash a bit more, I just have to make a little bit more money, I just have to do it. No. Like, sometimes this shit just hasn't happened yet. And that's okay. I guess that's maybe the broadest, the best advice I could give.
There's a nugget of wisdom that I could offer that I think relates to that. I've like heard this saying. Like, this is not something I came up with. It's just like advice I read somewhere online. That like happiness is attractive. Like, when you're happy, like, people will be drawn to you because like they want a slice of that happiness. And so I think like the idea is that, like, if you look at a lot of men who do have a partner, or who do attract a lot of attention, like, they're happy, and like they've got like things going on, and I think like what a lot of like I think like what a lot of young men do is that, like, they're like unhappy, they're like miserable in their lives, and like they think like, oh, like a girlfriend is like the main thing that I need like right now that would fix that. And it's kind of like it's kind of like the other way around, where like you need like the other important stuff in your life first, and then that makes like girlfriends, like, like romantic attention, like, more likely to come by. And I'm not saying that that makes things like fair. It's like still unfair, because like yeah, because it's kind of hard to be like non-miserable in today's social, political, and like economic climate, right? I'm not denying that. But like I don't like I despite what Axion said earlier, that a lot of the men you've spoken to have testified that like for them like the lack of a romantic relationship in particular like hits hard compared to like being lonely in other areas or not like having other things. Like again, I feel like I have to raise the question of like how much of that is just like biological and how much is kind of cultural. Because speaking for myself, I know that when I went from like being in like an abusive environment to like moving in with my husband and like having like a romantic partner, like and I didn't really have a lot of friendships outside of the relationship, but like having a romantic partner made things like much better than just kind of being like completely alone. Um, but it didn't completely like fix my problems. It wasn't really until more recently that I've um learned how to like make friends and like I feel like really talk to people better, that my life has felt far more complete. And maybe like my experience isn't like actually like really representative of men's experiences at all. Maybe we're just kind of like wired differently as men and women, like that's possible. But like um I think there is the possibility that maybe men think that they like really need a romantic relationship when like um yeah, like, sure, like I'm not saying like like sure, like some of their needs could be fulfilled through that, but like maybe the problem could be viewed differently.
I suppose I tend to think if we took someone who had like really good friends, but an absence of a romantic relationship, I do think something crucial would still be missing from their
Well,
life.
yeah, I'm not saying like they should be happy without but if they like but like oh no, sorry, I didn't mean to like interrupt or sound like antagonistic, but I'm just thinking that like for example, if there's a guy who's just lonely, period, like he doesn't have it, like meaning like he doesn't really have a lot of significant relationships in his life, whether romantic or platonic, and like the first thing he's thinking about is like I need a girlfriend. Like in my opinion, that's kind of like going about things like backwards. Like it helps more to start with just making like have like finding platonic relationships and making sure like other parts of your life is in order, and then like it's really hard to find like a romantic relationship without that, I think, and one that is like stable and healthy and is going to work.
Yes, you should start by thinking you should be a streamer instead. That's how you
What?
That's how you fix all the problems. Actually, you got to tell yourself, hold on, I have to start streaming. That'll fix it. That'll do it.
Is there something you're trying to tell us about yourself, Charis?
What? What do you anyways, I'm still really sad and lonely, but it's completely unrelated to this. No, I do think I have maybe like a burning question. Or maybe not a burning question.
Yeah.
I think I want to flip the question um um on its head a bit. Like, and what I mean is like, the question of, okay, I am ugly, I am pathetic, I am not pathetic, I'm ugly and I am poor and I'm not very attractive and I did not have any social opportunities, and now the dating market is asking for things that I just don't have, like, rather than position it from that angle of someone who's suffering because of these things that they think they could fix or like are unfixable but nonetheless disadvantage them. What about the regular? I don't know if that's the word I want to use, but what about the folks who don't, for example, perceive themselves as particularly ugly or particularly broke or particularly unattractive in any way? Like they think, at least they think of themselves as like decent average human beings who just haven't had the luck maybe of finding love. Like what would we say to them?
No, no, because like I said, like I think there's a very real chance that no offense to my husband Leon, I think there's a real chance that just looking at the way society is, that if I hadn't met him, he'd be single, and it's not because like just because he didn't met me, like he meet me, he's like a far worse person. Like it's not like that. I think it's just um there's just like a lot of things that are like messed up with our society that all feed into why this is so difficult.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the first thing
Okay, my
I
my husband is saying, "Rip, well, you didn't have any girlfriends before me. I'm just extrapolating. No offense. I love you, honey."
My condolences, man. Anyways, what were you saying?
So,
Yeah.
yeah, on that, I think the first thing I would tell a person like that is just I would affirm to them that it's not your fault. Things are much more difficult dating wise in some ways these days compared to for previous generations. And again, I think dating apps have a lot to do with that. One point that came up in chat earlier, which I think is a very good point. Sorry, my VTube Studio just crashed on my phone, so
Uh-oh.
that's why I'm looking remarkably still right now. But no need to worry. But yeah, I think that with what was I going with that? Oh yeah, one of the reasons why I think it's become so much more difficult is that any man today who's looking for a partner has to compete not just with people in the neighborhood or people at the same school, but with other men across a much broader area. Just given that dating apps now give any woman access to a much greater number of potential male partners than in the past. And so I would, affirm to them, look, like just because maybe your father and grandfather had a much easier time finding partners, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you or that you're so much worse than they are. There are some different factors today that in some ways make things harder. At least harder for the men who are not, at the very top of the attractiveness scale. But then, yeah, after that though, I guess it would depend partly on where it seemed like they had the most areas for improvement. It could be like if they're average in attractiveness, but for some reason they could significantly improve their looks by doing something relatively minor, like getting a better haircut or something. I might recommend that they do that. Otherwise, I would say look at a lot of it comes down to having a certain boldness, a certain willingness to just go ahead and ask someone out. Consequences be damned. And it might be very tough to put yourself in that state of mind if you're the kind of person who grew up having messages repeatedly emphasized to you about respecting others' boundaries and not making others uncomfortable. And if you're a very risk averse, high inhibition type of person, that's going to make it very difficult to find a partner. I mean, this might sound a little too blunt or generalizing, but I think it is fair to say that women in general just do not find that as attractive as someone who just is willing to make a bolder approach, let's say. And even if not all of the women you approach will like that, perhaps there's at least a greater chance of finding someone who will than if you are more inhibited about the way that you approach and interact with others. But then other than that, I would just say, yeah, like it's still not guaranteed. It might never happen. If it doesn't for you, then that sucks. Don't let anyone tell you that it's not a significant thing. Like it really does. It's awful that you have to go through life without ever having that fundamental human experience. If you ever want to talk about it, I'm here. Maybe we could sit down and try to find some other things that at least make life somewhat more worthwhile, like playing Magic the Gathering or something, or playing a video game, or just being friends, finding other pursuits. So yeah, those are a few of the things I would say.
Mm-hmm. I think
I like
sorry,
that.
you go.
Oh, there was one part of that I wanted to respond to directly, and it was when you mentioned like women like kind of expecting men to make the first move. That wasn't really something we've touched on previously during this discussion, but I also think that's a relic of traditional gender norms where it's just like the kind of thing that like it's just a tradition that's been like passed down from generation until now, and like just nobody's it's like vestigial. Like nobody's questioned it so far. Like we don't need it anymore, but it's still around because just like nobody has just like stopped and been like, why are we still doing this? But I think it's because in bygone eras, like based on you know, how what the kind of roles we expected women to fulfill in the past, like it would have been considered sort of like out of line, maybe like slutty for women to be like the one to make the first move. But I think like that, like nowadays, like women should do that like more often. Like there should not be as strong of a stigma against that now. And I think if like women are still holding on to that mindset of like no, it's like more attractive if like he makes the first move, like I'm like invested in this fantasy, then like that might be kind of sexist too. And I feel like Karis for some reason is just really fixated on this like, okay, but what would you say to someone who was like ugly and crying? And because of that, I don't know, I'll try my best to provide more of a direct answer of my own. I'm not a dude, so I don't feel like I could say the same thing as X just said, even though I think that was a very nice answer. I think for me, I would just like put emphasis on like how like it's like not like it like don't take it personally, like it's like probably not your fault. There's just the world is like unfair, the system is unfair, it is messed up in a lot of ways. That said, that doesn't mean it is like the fault of like, you know, women or like or in like in particular or anything like that. It's like a lot of different factors. And I would yeah, I think I too would try my best to try to like assure them that they are worthy and valuable as they are.
But like, what if I'm mid?
Well, now this is
What
going
if
in
I know?
circles.
No. What if I know that I'm worthy and valuable, and I'm reassured, but I'm still lonely. Could that happen? Could that exist? That one could be assured in oneself and know one's worth and know that, you know, it's not my fault. I know I'm not gonna hate women, you know, I'm not gonna be an incel, but it does
Y-
feel like, you know, men are more lonely than usual.
Well, I mean, it is kind of luck based, right? I mean, what do we say?
Hmm.
I mean, I think that can absolutely happen. Someone can recognize their own value, but also be lonely, also feel the sadness that comes from acknowledging that their life would be richer and fuller if they had a partner that they could share it with. Yeah, those things to me seem entirely compatible. And for someone who, you know, approached me and expressed that they were in this situation, yeah, depending on the circumstance, there might not be much that I can say to them. I think the greatest gift, perhaps, that I could offer them would just be my honesty, and that could, you know, be expressed in various ways. For some of the more extreme cases, sadly, it might just amount to a form of saying, "Take the black pill. It's over, but I'm here for you."
It's over. No, it's over. I think maybe what I would say to like such a situation, right? To someone who's not, you know, maybe like someone who is, for lack of a better term, feels as though they're on the bottom rung of the ladder, right? It feels as though someone who's like hopeless and, you know, too ugly for the dating market. No. But someone who, and as the vast majority of people tend to be, statistically speaking, someone who's just kind of mid in the sense that like they are not particularly awful. They're not particularly outstanding in a good way either. There's just we're all just sort of in the middle. We've had maybe the standard experiences, whatever those may be, the of uh male, you know, socialization and like I'm just a guy, you know. I'm not someone who's super hateful. I'm not someone who's super obsessed with being a gym bro. And also, I'm self-assured. Actually, maybe even that's the, you know, a step above that, right? I'm self-assured and I know my worth and I know my value and I know that I've done everything in my power to self-improve. You know, I've done all the self-improvement, or at least I've done a lot of it. And you know, like there could be more self-improvement to be done, but surely, like, is my hope for romance just constantly just trying to improve oneself, or is there like, you know, how do I maybe, you know, to put it in those terms, like I don't know how I can swallow the black pill. How do I do that?
Well, I mean, one thing I suppose I could or maybe would say if somebody came to me with that, is that past a certain level, I'm not sure that self-improvement is really the kind of thing that would bring about more dating success. It might, depending on what form it takes, but in particular, if the self-improvement is just, if it amounts to things like being a nicer person, I would be honest with the person and say that it's not clear how well that is correlated with romantic success. But if the self-improvement takes the form of like, looking more attractive or earning more money, like those are things that are correlated with more romantic success as a
So I
man.
should start bone smashing.
Quite possibly.
Okay, can I talk here? I want to talk here.
Sure.
Okay, first of all, I'm like people in chat are saying like rip Leon, and I feel like I can't win. Like if I talk about my husband, it's either oh if Leon is so great, how like the rest of us don't have a chance, or it's like rip Leon. Like and I'm like I want to like make it clear. Like the point I'm trying to make is that like it's luck based, and it's like it's not just something that affects men. Like if like the reverse is true. If I think if I hadn't met Leon, I think I would probably be single too, or like because like I'm like an attractive like woman, like maybe I could have like a sugar daddy and be like provided for like materially, but like not like emotionally. That's what I think, right? So it's like I think like I don't know, we just like this is just not an issue that society is very good at like addressing or finding solutions for yet, and I like I agree with what Berserker is saying, which is I think the best way to help that man isn't to talk to him, it's to push for systemic change in society. And now of course those things are not mutually exclusive. We can certainly do both. We can reassure individuals and push for systemic change. But like I wonder, Charis, if you're like fixating too much over like okay, but like what do you say to this guy? Like and then, but I really I think like in my heart of hearts, I really think like the answer lies in us, banding together, men and women alike, to make things better for the next generation. I know, I know. Axe mentioned the black pill just now, and because of that, I feel like I have to mention what I like to call my view on this. I call it being green pilled, and I'm sure you're like, "What the fuck is a green pilled? I've never heard of that." And of course you haven't, because that's something that I made up. I've made it up after a really illuminating experience I had relating to this issue years ago. I was watching the Sarah's Fauna clip of her, like I think she was like playing like Hitman, right? The game with like the bald guy, and like she was talking about how like how you think men should be complimented like more often, and then like there's like all like the men in her chat go like yeah like Fauna's based, like she knows what's up, and then like the clip got posted on YouTube, and then like the comment section of like the YouTube video was also like oh like Fauna's based, like she knows what's up, and um it was kind of like eye-opening at the time, because I feel like up until that point, I feel like uh I'd been led to think that to at least somewhat buy into the narrative that like oh a lot of men are like super entitled and they want this and that, and it's like they have unrealistic standards and it's unfair, and like here there was like a contrasting narrative, a contradicting narrative, that actually men's standards are at least in some ways like really low, and and that it was like that. I think that moment that led to my having the conversation with Leon about how he doesn't feel like he's good enough and a lot of other things, and it is because of that of that catalyst that I call it being green pilled, because green is Sarah's Fauna's image color, and she was kind of like ahead of her time on this. So I think, I don't know. I think like my issue with the framing of take the black pill is that the black pill has connotations of um like kind of like blaming women specifically that this is happening. And I I don't think that that's the play. I think that what we should do is challenge the societal causes for this, and even if it doesn't directly benefit ourselves, I mean, it might, but even if it doesn't, it'll help leave the world a better place for the next generation. And I think that that is part of our responsibility. Charis, yesterday you were telling us a very poignant and moving story about some children in your life, and how you know, for everyone at home, no matter how bitter and resentful you are about this issue and how you feel about other adults, if you are as good of a person as you probably think you are, then you you got to be willing to do it, at least for the kids. And if you don't, then I don't think you have the right to think of yourself as a moral paragon over any of us, because um, you know, those kids have not consented to watch the world burn with you. They have not consented to your abandonment of hope. So, we just got to do that.
Thank you. Can I just say that when you when you ask why I fixated so much on like what do we tell the person who asks, I'm
Mhm.
mid or I'm ugly and whatever, what do we say to them? Like what I was trying to like tease out was that what you said just now. It's like that's what we should say to them. That's what we should say. We should reassure them, right? So it's less me asking the question and now perhaps me answering my own question, as well as like responding to what you said earlier, right? It is a reassurance. It is a green pill if you'd like. It is a compliment or two, more so than we're used to as men. We're gonna have to get used to that a little bit more.
Mhm.
It is a giving each other the positive validation and attention that we deserve from each other, and uplifting each other, and understanding that yes, there are systemic issues that might be outside of our individual controls, or so it seems. We can nonetheless still strive for and push for systemic changes. We can still nonetheless strive for things like increased social spaces, increased third spaces out there that we can all actually go and talk to each other in. We can encourage, or at least fight for, or advocate for more opportunities for people to socialize, to be around each other, not just to increase the prospects of dating and being around each other, but just to make friends, just to talk in a non-romantic context, just purely platonically, to enjoy these moments. We can push for perhaps, if it helps, and I imagine it does in the current age, certain economic policy that might make it easier for people to afford to be able to go out, or to at least afford their own space, or to at least be able to afford to engage in things that have been slowly kind of priced out. We didn't touch on it too much, but we sort of like skipped around it. That sometimes it does feel like one of the prevailing issues with going out and visit and not visiting, talking to people, meeting with people, is that we're like priced out of it, right? Is that it's more expensive to go out. So that makes it harder,
Mm.
and that makes us pickier when we want to go out with different people to see what they're like. Perhaps we could introduce changes to that impact those as well. And while we advocate for all these bigger, larger structural uh, uh, changes, it's also helpful to bear in mind the reassurance that yes, you are good enough. You are deserving of love, not because you earn a certain amount, or you're a certain height, or you look a certain way because you've looks maxed your way to it, but because you're a human being. I guess maybe just one other thing that is not quite related to this, maybe almost like sentiment that seems to be a sort of wrap up of some of the things we've said, is if in terms of the micro aspect of socialization, actually, it helps to take interest in people and what they say. I think it really helps to genuinely just enjoy listening to people talking about themselves or talking about certain things. And if you take an interest in them, they'll notice that in a good way, that you're taking an interest not just in them as in not just in them as a potential romantic partner, but as a human being. And that's a lot more attractive than if you bone smash.
Well said. Yeah.
So then I wonder, are there any circumstances in which either of you would say to someone, like all of those things, but also it's probably over? Or would you not say that?
Is there a need to? What do you think is the value in saying that? Would you ask?
I would be very careful about how I said it, but if that is what I genuinely thought, then yeah, at least I do like to think that I would be honest with them about that. And I think because at least knowing that perspective, which they could treat as just the fallible viewpoint of me rather than as gospel, they could just take it as one data point that, hey, that's what this person thinks. But with that data point in mind, perhaps their mind would be open to the possibility that, hey, if I keep trying for years and years and years and still get nowhere, perhaps it's not my fault. Or perhaps at a certain point or past a certain point, I should focus my efforts elsewhere if they're not getting me anywhere in this area of life. I think that that can be a very valuable awareness that can actually help these people's lives go better in some cases.
You hear that? I speak as I look directly at the camera and stare straight into the soul of whoever is listening to this right now. It's okay. It's probably not your fault. At least, it couldn't ever entirely be your fault. um, you know what? I feel less lonely now. What about you guys? What about you, lonely
Um,
man, too? Do you feel less lonely? And you, not lonely, not man, do you also feel less lonely?
I'm not okay. I may not be a man, but I've been lonely for a good deal of my life. All right.
Mm-mm-mm. Of course.
Yeah, I suppose I would say it's a tricky question to answer in a short way, but I do think that having both of you as friends has helped enrich my life and has made it less lonely than it would otherwise be. That is very much true.
It feels like we're kind of wrapping up, and now, and these are our closing statements. And if that's the case, I guess I have a little speech I could make. And when I say speech, I don't mean it's not like I'm not like reading off like a script. It's not something I've rehearsed or anything. I just have an idea of what I'd like to say. Um, I guess since this stream is in some ways a celebration of and a focus on men, I feel like I really want to take the opportunity to formally acknowledge some of the men in my life. And one reason I want to do this is because they're it's not just it's like let's be real, like even though the stream is about men, it's not going to be only men like watching it. Like there are women are involved in this. There's like the I think like there's a message that women need to hear. There are women watching this right now, and I think there will be women watching the VOD. um I think that like um I feel like the need to point out examples of shall we say innocent men. um but I want to start with maybe I'll start with my dad. um Contrary to what a lot of people assume when I say that I'm a child abuse survivor. My dad was not the one who abused me. He, in fact, saved my life. Because after I was born, my mother didn't take care of me whatsoever. My dad was the one who fed me and bathed me and clothed me. So somehow I have this feeling that if he did not step up, I literally would not be here. And that's one thing. I also want to um, acknowledge and thank my husband Leon, whom I brought up already today. But I feel that he has also saved my life in the sense that he was the first person who I think who loved me for who I was, and I I think it was because of his grace and generosity that I was able to escape from an abusive household and I guess start to experience a life and a world and a humanity outside of that nightmare. And um, I think, especially when I met him, I think he was just so much of a kinder person than I was that it really amazed and inspired me. I really wanted to learn from him and become more like him. And I'd like to say that I think that I did. I think that over the last 11 years, we both have influenced each other in various ways. And although although I may tease him a lot on stream, I think people seem to have a certain impression of our marriage that I have mixed feelings about. I owe him so much, and my loyalty to him is truly absolute. And um, you know, he's my favorite person in the world basically. And then I also and then this one is also for the dudes out there, for anyone who is wondering, you know can I be cool and respectable, even if I don't feel like I am, I don't have a romantic partner, I don't feel like I'm super rich, or I'm live up to all the things I feel like society says I need to be an ideal man. May I direct to you, Charis Euphranor?
Oh.
Charis is not he doesn't have a square jawline, and he's not super tall or muscular, and he doesn't have a girlfriend, and
God.
he's not rich.
You don't know that. You
And
don't know that. You don't know that. I'm just saying you don't know that.
he doesn't have a big house and a fancy car. But you know what? He has people around him who really like and respect him. I think as much as he's easy to pick on. I think we can all sort of drop that for a moment and acknowledge that we do truly respect and look up to him. And despite not being very traditionally masculine at all, he's really earned that from us. I certainly respect him. I feel like there are a lot of ways in which I look up to him and am learning from him, even though he is younger than me. And
I'm 60 years old, by the way.
yeah, and my soul is more than 2,000. Ergo,
Yeah.
I am
So
older than
there's scaling in here. Yep.
We should have a Charis appreciation stream sometime, like a whole
Oh,
stream
goodness.
dedicated to appreciating Charis.
Oh goodness! Right now, ooh.
I knighted him once. That's not good enough.
Thank you, and thank you, men. Thank you, men, for being great.
And and one last thing, um, I My friend Axion is one of the most incredible people I've ever met. He's actually like so compassionate. He's like, like he's like more compassionate than like most of like the women I've had in my life, and I can't even believe it. Like sometimes I ask myself like like why is he so nice to me? I don't feel like I deserve it. Like one time I like I wrote like a letter to him on like Discord, like talking about how I like his streams have like inspired me so much, and it's like it's like made such a difference to my like mental health, and like I like kind of like felt like I don't know, like I didn't feel like proud of myself for like how I don't know for like certain things, and like he wrote back to me saying like I have like the message in front of me, and it's just one of the most wonderful things I've ever read. He wrote, in some of our exchanges, I could tell you were feeling upset about something, and I felt bad for you in those moments. But at the same time, I always had a sense that things would ultimately work out for the best. Perhaps it was my general optimism, along with knowing that you have Leon as a supportive partner in your life. And it sounds as if things have indeed lately been moving in a positive direction for your mental health, which I'm so, so glad to hear. And, and when I got that message, it was just one of the nicest things I've ever heard in my life. And that came from a man, not a woman. It came from this man, Axion. And I just I want I want everyone to know that.
Well, thank you for saying that, Tia. That does mean a lot.
I don't I should be the one thanking you because you changed my
Oh.
life.
Well, thank each other then. Yeah, I think it says a lot about you that you're the kind of person who can appreciate me and appreciate the men in your life more broadly, in those very deep, very touching ways.
Thank you, X. Thank you, men. Thank you, men. Obviously, in Tia as
Um,
well.
I I wanted to end off my speech by saying something on behalf of the three of us. I know we talked about different kinds of solutions, and about the importance of a systemic change. But at the same time, systemic change is hard. It takes time, and at the end of the day, like our institutions can fail us. And what do we do if that happens? What do we do if when that aspect of things isn't working out? And I think that's when we turn to each other and the people, the individuals who we see before us in our lives, and turn to those kinds of connections and relationships for comfort and solace. Um, I something I want to say right now is I don't know how many truly lonely men will be are watching this or will be watching this. Those who may identify as incels and truly feel like they have um, maybe like nothing going for them in their lives and are in a very dark and desperate place. Um, I think for people like that. there are not a lot of places in society where they can really go to, for some sense of belonging and companionship that are not just like, alt-right pipelines that will like basically further harm them. Um, One thing I can say is that uh, when it comes to the three of us here, the members of Vlosophy, I think that all three of us are the kind of people and content creators who are very much up for the task of trying to offer a safe harbor for people who are struggling in that way and are maybe, looking to just, especially if you're looking to like learn and ask questions. I think that all three of us are willing to do that kind of work. We are not we that said, we will not, tolerate any like sort of like bad faith behavior, but I think I think it's safe to say that that's something we can offer, and I know that's not really very common in our society. So if you think you are struggling and you're sort of have certain those kinds of concerns and questions, know that the three of us here, philosopher VTubers, are might be able to make your life better, even in a very small way. We're not your therapist. We can't be your sole source of support in your life, but I think there are already people in our communities who are not necessarily incels per se, but who do have their own trauma of whatever kind, and are come here for come to us for a combination of like learning and enlightenment, but also entertainment and companionship. Um, I and yes, on behalf of my gen mates, thank you very much for being here and for watching our stream.
Just normal men.
Right.
Just innocent men.
Yes, but
Yeah.
they're just innocent men.
Incels and incel adjacent are always welcome here in our streams.
We're just men.
True.
We do be men. Men do be lonely. But it's okay. We can be lonely together, men. We can be lonely together.
Mhm.
Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you. I hope this stream made everyone less lonely. I saw some people in the comments saying that was the case, and that's good. If there were 2 people that were less lonely because of the stream, that's all we needed. Just two more guys at a bar. They're hopefully a little less depressed when they order their next shot of whiskey. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Axe.
Yeah,
Thank you, Tia.
before
Yes.
well, before we close out, I was just wondering, do we have any announcements we would like to make to our, especially to our communities?
Do you?
What I
I have one I could make, but yeah, Tia,
Yes.
feel free to go ahead. Oh, I think you might be.
I think
I think Axe,
you're
you can go
back.
first
Okay.
if you like.
Okay. Well, in about 25 minutes, I have a new video premiere releasing. It's not like a super long video, but it's an examination of a new version of the moral argument for the existence of God. And it's a response to a video by Trent Horn, who's a prominent Catholic apologist on YouTube. So I'll be examining that argument in detail. It's part of the reason why I haven't been streaming that much this week, is I've mostly just been kind of working on finishing up the filming and editing of that video. So if you're interested in checking it out, feel free to stop by. Again, that'll be in about 25 minutes on my channel.
Fun.
Sounds exciting.
Arguments
Then
for
we're
God.
wrapping up just in time. What did you say, Karis?
Fun arguments for God. Very fun. I'm sorry that came out like I meant it sarcastically. No, I actually do. I actually do enjoy
Yeah, kind of
reading
did.
arguments. No, like the existence of God cause discussions. I'm not gonna derail this stream for that. Okay, I'm not gonna just go watch the video. It's gonna be cool. All right. I am going to. Sorry, you have an
Wait.
announcement.
Yes. So for my part, I wanted to tell everyone that on uh, uh April 1st, so April Fool's Day, is coming Wednesday. Axion and I are actually doing a collab, an April Fool's collab, called Philosophers Become Comedians, where instead of being philosophers, we try to be as funny as possible and make you and each other laugh. And the stream will have multiple twists, including a special musical performance at the end. And it's the waiting room for it is already up on my channel. If you want to click and notify, if you want to turn on notifications, and yeah, I can. I've been working like super hard for that stream as well, and I think it'll be like a show to remember.
Right. And the April Fool's joke is that we call it Philosophers Becoming Comedians, but in reality, we're going to be super stone-faced and serious the whole time.
Let's go.
Yes. Of course, yes.
Fantastic.
That's definitely the
awesome.
twist. Mhm.
I am doing a stream not on the same day. It was originally going to be on the same day. I'm not. It's going to actually be on Monday. I'm going to do a stream with Fi, the neutrophil, who was here in chat earlier. We're going to talk about life. We're going to talk about the origins of life and just perhaps even the meaning of life, if you would like. And other just big general, almost faux philosophical, but actually somewhat philosophical questions. And that's going to happen on his channel. And it's going to be very fun and also very casual and not very academic or intense, but it's going to be by two nerdy academics, so make of that what you will. Epistemology in brackets, that's right, Fi. That's happening on Monday. I'll promote it
Yay.
shortly and through other means, but that's going to happen. Is it Monday? Yeah, I think it's Monday. That's tomorrow. Wait, no, that's the day after. Okay, thank you everyone. I hope men, you are not as lonely. I hope women, you're not so lonely. I hope we're all just less lonely, because it's less, I see it less as a male loneliness epidemic truly, and more just a loneliness epidemic in general, but maybe that's a conversation for another time. Thank you everyone, and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Not forever though. We're not gonna be too lonely. We're gonna be together actually. It's gonna be great. We're gonna have so much fun socializing.